Da, 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 da. Hello, everyone, everywhere, wizards, witches, muggles, and things.
Bugs.
Friends, Romans, and gladiators. Yeah. Okay. So, hello, everyone, and welcome to this reflection on Harry Potter, years 1 through 4. Um, with myself, Alan Caylow, Harry Thomas, and Jack the Film Fanatic. Where today we reflect on the first 4 films in the Harry Potter saga, so the first half of the saga, essentially. All the films from The Philosopher's Stone, The Chamber of Secrets, The Prisoner of Azkaban, and The Goblet of Fire. So, I'm gonna let ladies go first, and I'm gonna let Jack start actually with The Philosopher's Stone, or Sorcerer's Stone if you're in America.
Like me.
Oh, you're the lady. You were the one who was in the play.
You leave my tits out of this.
Well, yeah, Philosopher's Stone. I think this is a great film. I mean, I can't believe now it's nearly 20 years old. In a couple of years' time, it'll be 20 years old. So, yeah, wow. But Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, or Sorcerer's Stone, if you live in America. I think this is a great film. I mean, this is the film that introduced us to the Harry Potter film franchise. This is the the one that kind of laid the groundwork for all the other Harry Potter films, and I think it's great. I mean, it's interesting how they adapted this because you had the first Harry Potter book, which came out back in '97, and bringing these films to the screen, would be kind of a difficult task, but they managed to do it, and I mean, I think it's a great movie. I think the direction here by Chris Columbus is very good. The cast, I think, is great. You've got an all-star cast. Daniel Radcliffe as Harry Potter. Emma Watson as Hermione. Rupert Grint as Ron. And, of course, you got, Alan Rickman, Richard Harris. The list goes on, basically. And I think they're great. I mean, I think the beginning to the film is very interesting with, that iconic...
Sorry, Jack. R.I.P. to both Alan Rickman and Richard Harris. Just a quick note.
Yeah. Sadly, they're no longer with us, but yeah. No, I mean, I think the beginning of the film is great, like with that, fantastic scene where you've got Dumbledore with Professor McGonagall, and they bring Harry to the doorstep of the Dursleys, and the Dursleys are definitely not the family that you want to spend time with.
Yeah, Merry fucking Christmas.
Yeah, and yeah, I love the scene when Hagrid arrives on the motorbike, Robbie Coltrane. And yeah, the intro was great, where it zooms into his scar and it says Harry Potter, and you got the Harry Potter theme by John Williams, which I think is great, and I think that Harry Potter theme is one of the best, themes that John Williams has done. I mean, I think the beginning is quite good, where you see Harry, living with the Dursleys, and, he's basically living under the stairs. And I think me and Ollie pointed this out. I mean, where the heck is social services, I mean, he's basically being abused, being kept under a cupboard under the stairs. I mean,
they could get arrested for that.
Yeah. I mean, where's the RSPCC?
Where's the RSPCA? I mean, they're bloody animals.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, I think Daniel Radcliffe, he's a great child actor. I mean, definitely much better than Jake Lloyd in The Phantom Menace.
Yippee!
Oh God, yeah. But I mean, I think he's a great actor, for a kid. I mean, I think he was 11 or 12 when he did this film, and he's great. And I think the film itself has this magical charm to it. I mean, I think the rest of the cast are great. Like Richard Griffiths is, Mr. Dursley. He's very funny. Like that scene where Harry, he's accepted to Hogwarts, and all the letters are coming through his box. And he's basically flooded with letters. And then he's like, "Oh, I love Sunday. You know why, Harry? No post on Sunday." He's great, and yeah, fortunately Richard Griffiths isn't with us anymore either, but he's great. And the others are good, like Dudley and Petunia. And it's interesting as well to see Harry at the zoo, and he lets the snake loose, and you can find out in this film, when we get more into the next film, like that he can talk in parcel tongue. So that was an entertaining scene. But I mean, I think the film has a lot of great comedic moments. I mean, this is definitely, I'd say, one of the most charming. I say it is probably the most charming film of the series. It's quite
I agree with
light.
that. Yeah.
I mean, it does have its dark moments towards the end, but it is definitely quite a charming film. That's what I kind of like about it. That's why the Philosopher's Stone is one of my favorite Harry Potter films, because it's got that sense of charm. I mean, it has the darkness as well, but it's great. And that whole scene where Hagrid arrives at the lighthouse, and he knocks down the door, is hilarious. And he's like, dry up, Dursley, you prune, and he bends the shotgun. And when we see Harry, that he tells him he's a wizard, and we sort of get more into his backstory, but that that he was told his parents died in a car crash, but they were killed by Voldemort, which was interesting. But I mean, that scene's hilarious, and especially when Hagrid, turns, puts a pigtail on Dudley's arse. That was quite funny. Gives him the pigtail, and and I think it's great as well. Like, we see Diagon Alley, and I have to say, like, the sets and attention to detail in this film are great. I mean, they've really done the best that they can to bring J.K. Rowling's vision to the screen. I mean, the sets are great. It's just and what I like as well is it's mostly practical effects. I mean, yes, there is CGI, but most of these like effects are practical. And I love the scene where Harry gets his wand and John Hurt's there, and we find out that the wand is actually it's some way connected to Voldemort's wand, and that whole scene in Diagon Alley is great, and I love when Harry I mean, it takes us a while to get to Hogwarts, but I love the build up to it, and the scene where Harry's with Ron, on the train, and he meets Ron and he meets Hermione and all, and I think the three main trio cast of characters are great. Emma Watson, Rupert Grint, and Daniel Radcliffe as Hermione, Ron and Harry. I mean, they all do a great job. And I mean, once they get to Hogwarts as well, that's a brilliant scene. I love that scene where they arrive and you see Hogwarts for the first time, where they're on the boats. That's really well done. And I just love the look of the school and all that. I mean, and I think the way it's brought to life the screen is great. Um, I mean, the whole stuff with the Philosopher's Stone as well is interesting, and the film is long. I will say, I mean, it's 2.5 hours long, so um, they're definitely trying to, get a lot of the stuff from the book and put it on the screen. But I think it holds together very well.
Yeah.
I mean, the only criticism I guess I could say of the first one is some of the CGI is a little dated now. Like, some of the characters do look a little bit rubbery.
I think actually there's the troll as well, like you said, when the troll gets the wand up his nose, that moment when you see Harry on his back, it does look a bit rubbery.
Yeah, or the scene where Neville Longbottom, he's on the broomstick and he falls on top of the church spire or whatever, and he falls down. That looked a little bit fakey, but for the most part, the CGI is still pretty good. There's some great scenes. Like, I love the scene where Harry plays his first Quidditch match, and he becomes a Seeker, and I like his sort of rivalry with Malfoy, played by Tom Felton. That was really good. Where he says to Harry that you don't want to make friends with the Weasleys, and he decides to stay with Ron and stuff. I mean, they did a really great job casting all these characters. Like, I mean, Alan Rickman, Snape. I mean, great actor. I mean, fortunately not with us anymore.
Yeah.
But he's great as Snape. But I'd say this is probably his best role. And I mean, of course, you got Professor Quirrell as well with the stutter. Professor Quirrell, that's great. And I think the finale of the film is really good. Where we see Harry and they find out about the Philosopher's Stone, and they go down, and you have you have Fluffy, the three-headed dog, and you have the sort of the finale where they're looking for the key, and then you have that great moment with the chessboard where they're where Ron basically sacrifices himself, but he's still alive, and I thought that was a great moment, and it's nice to see them all kind of uh come together towards the end to help each other. And I mean, I just think the characters are great. Like
pretty tough for 11-year-olds.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there are some funny moments in it, like when they're learning spells, and like Hermione's like, it's Leviosa, not Leviosa. Yeah, I mean, Hermione is a bit of a know-it-all, but Emma Watson is Emma Watson's good, and there are some other great moments. Like I love the scene where Harry's like looking into the mirror, and he sees his parents, and I love the scenes between him and Richard Harris. They're probably my favorite moments of the first two films, of the scenes with Harry and Dumbledore, like where he tells him about the.
Funny, Jack. You mentioned Richard Harris. Sorry to interrupt. It's funny because Dumbledore gets much more to do in the later stories, so it's a shame that Harris didn't survive to play the part after the second film. Because I mean, even though they gave him more to do in the second film, he still didn't have nearly as much as Michael Gambon, which is a shame.
Yeah, no, it is a shame that he passed away. But nonetheless, I mean, he's great as Dumbledore, and I love the scenes of him and Harry. I mean, the film, for the most part, I think the pacing is good. There are a few scenes where it does kind of drag for me, but it doesn't damage the movie really. I mean, but there are a few scenes where they could have tightened it up a bit. But that aside, I think it's a great film. Also love the scene as well with the unicorn blood in the forest and stuff.
Yeah,
that was well done.
Yeah,
and it's great seeing these young kids like learning their spells and stuff. That I mean, the way they've recreated Hogwarts for the screen is great. But yeah, I mean, I love the ending as well, where Harry confronts Quirrell, and we find out that Quirrell is in fact he's with Voldemort. Literally. Yeah. And I mean that always kind of freaked me out. Like when I was younger, like the fact that Voldemort's in the back of his head. But the ending is quite good. Like,
how would he sleep at night? He'd literally crush Voldemort's head into the pillow. He'd be smothering him.
Yeah, but it's interesting that Harry has the stone. Like he looks into the mirror and he has the stone. And the ending where we see that when Harry touches Quirrell, like it damages him, and in the end he gets killed.
Is this magic?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say that Harry is a murderer at the end because he technically did kill Quirrell. So Harry is, I guess you could say, a murderer. But
yeah. Oh well, he's only 11. He gets away with it.
Yeah. He literally gets away with murder. Yeah.
Yeah. So did Voldemort.
Yeah. No, yeah, but I mean, the ending I think is great. Where you see Harry go back home and gives Hagrid a hug, and it's, I mean, yeah, and that's Philosopher's Stone, and overall I think Philosopher's Stone, it's a great film. This is the beginning of the Harry Potter series, and the Wizarding World series, which is still going today with Fantastic Beasts and stuff. I think the cast is great. You've got an all-star cast. Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, Rupert Grint, Richard Harris, Alan Rickman, Maggie Smith. I mean, it's a great cast, and Robbie Coltrane as well as Hagrid. And the way they did it for the screen it's magical, and it's definitely one of my favorite Harry Potter films. And I'm going to close off by giving Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone a 10 out of 10.
Woo! All marks for the first year. Excellent. So the microphone will now move over to Harry. Seeing as we have a Harry in this hangout, you're a wizard, Harry.
I'm a what? Lol. Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I got that a lot in, but oh yeah. Excuse me. I'm just receiving a letter. Dear Mr. Thomas, we are pleased to inform you have been accepted to review Harry Potter. Well, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone or Sorcerer's Stone. This is to me, while it's far from the best Harry Potter movie in the franchise for me, as the series would improve as it goes along, this is to me such a wonderful and magical start, and it's the first major live action movie I ever saw in my childhood. I was just 6 when I saw it back in 2001. And before that, I'd just been raised on Disney animated movies. So for this to be my first major live action movie, it was the perfect one. And Chris, and I and Harry Potter is tied with How to Train Your Dragon as my favorite movie franchise ever. I know the J.K. Rowling's Wizarding World like the Bible. It is that closer to my heart, and the fact, and
I don't think you'd be the only one. I think there'd be a lot of other people that would treat it like a Bible.
Oh yeah, literally.
Worship it.
Yeah, I literally worship this series and forever will, and I absolutely love the fact that my name Harry was in a major blockbuster. That was a pleasure for me, and
I knew you were watching.
Oh yeah, they most likely, yeah, and yeah, and Chris Columbus said he directed the first 2 Home Alone movies in the 90s, so he was the perfect.
Yeah, the only good ones.
Exactly, the only 2 good ones. So yeah, so he was the perfect director to direct the first 2 more light-hearted movies in this series, and I think the cast is so perfect, from Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, Rupert Grint, Maggie Smith, Richard Harris, Alan Rickman, and Robbie Coltrane, to John Hurts and Warwick Davis. They are so perfectly cast. It's as if they just stepped out of the books onto the big screen, and yeah, and I think. I absolutely adore that. This movie is less CGI heavy, as Jack said, and more brought to life by practical effects and sets. They shot it in a real castle to help bring Hogwarts to life, but the Hogwarts miniature itself is astonishing
Harry,
to behold.
can I ask you, have you been to the studio tour? Because I've seen that miniature. It is breathtaking.
Yeah, I've been 3 times, and it is breathtaking, literally to behold, man, and yeah, and the one of the most iconic scenes in this movie for me is the reptile house when Harry frees the python from the enclosure by speaking Parseltongue unintentionally, and that scene puts the reptile house at London Zoo on the map, even if this movie, my biggest gripe with it is that it is overlong. It's that it really does drag pacing wise in comparison to the others. I think Chris Columbus, with the first 2 movies, he remained a little too faithful to the books in terms of dialogue. But thankfully, the movie it is not. It does, even though it's extremely faithful to the book, it does change some things to prevent it from being a 4-hour movie. Yeah, oh yeah, and but the light-hearted tone was the perfect tone to start this franchise, and yeah, I felt so bad for Harry as a protagonist. I mean, this J.K. Rowling, she is a fan of giving her characters tragic backstories and putting them through shit, and Harry is no exception. I mean, to live with the Dursleys, the most abusive family. I know, right? The most abusive family in the universe. So forcing him to sleep under sleep in the fucking cupboard under the stairs. I mean, the Harry Potter universe is full of dicks, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think Harry's a dick.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I guess so. and this I absolutely. Yeah, and there are a ton of iconic scenes which I still remember to this day as a kid, from the troll bathroom fights to the unicorn blood in the Forbidden Forest. And even though Quidditch would be my least favorite part of the Wizarding World, because I'm not a fan of sports, so this is just wizarding, soccer, and Quidditch to me is boring. But the first two.
I disagree with that. I think Quidditch is great. I wish it was real, because it would actually be my favorite sport. You know, if anybody asked me what my favorite sport was, I'd say, well, Quidditch, if I could play it. But sadly, I can't lie on a broom. But maybe it would be better if it were real then. But actually, Harry, there's a game called the Quidditch World Cup for the PS2. I don't know if you ever played it.
Oh yeah, I've never played it, but I am aware of it. Yeah. Well, yeah. Don't get me wrong. Quidditch is still more enjoyable than actual soccer, but to me, it was. But at least in the first two movies, the first two Quidditch match. I mean, this Quidditch match. Harry's.
Sorry,
first
Harry, but I love a bit of football.
Oh yeah, yeah. At least to me, this first Quidditch match where Harry catches the snitch in his mouth, and that will tie into the Deathly Hallows. That was at least that was decent. That was stunning, and also the mirror of Error sets scenes, and the scenes he shares with Dumbledore, as Jack said, they are the heart of the movie, and even the final showdown with Harry and Quirrell and Voldemort, so where we see Quirrell as Voldemort, has been hiding on the back of Quirrell's head this entire time. That freaked me the fuck out as a child. It's this may be a light-hearted movie, but that was by far the darkest parts, easily. And John Williams' score. This is the Harry Potter score. Is his greatest theme he's ever composed. Sorry, Star Wars. And this was one of the landmark movies to be released in 2001, as well as Monsters Inc., Shrek, and Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring. And
isn't it funny that the same year that came out, we had two wizards with long grey beards?
We had both Gandalf and Harry Potter released the exact same year. I know, right? But the Philosopher's Stone. This movie, it may not be a perfect movie as to me as an adult, but it is still close to my heart, and it's a perfect, wonderful family classic, and I'm not even if I like the majority of the sequels and the first two Fantastic Beasts movies better, Philosopher's Stone, to me, I am so proud. This was the first major live action movie that I ever saw as a child. So it will always be one of the most important movies to me. So I rate Philosopher's Stone 9 points for Gryffindor, a 9 out of 10, and 4 stars out of 5.
Nice. Also, Harry, obviously you're entitled to your opinion, of course, about Fantastic Beasts, but I just don't get it. I'm sorry. I can't agree with that.
Fair enough, Ollie.
Yeah, and be prepared for the angry mob to come after you about Crimes of Grindelwald.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm surprised that you don't prefer the Harry Potter films. Harry.
I am in the huge minority there. Trust me, I've had such an angry mob of hate comments on my channel for that opinion.
Well, before we get to Fantastic Beasts, we'll deal with this first. Okay, so Alan, this is going to be a special one for you because I believe this is your favorite movie of the series.
I think so, yeah. And just a moment here, I'm going to briefly switch on the camera.
Hey!
Hold on. Hi there. So here's DVD of the film.
Awesome.
As you can see, in my neck of the woods, we call it Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. That's how I know the movie. Although the rest of the world, it's Philosopher's Stone. But here, in my neck of the woods, we say Sorcerer's Stone. So there you go. And let me switch off the camera again. Thank you. Yes, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone for us Yanks, or Philosopher's Stone for the rest of the world. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Ollie. First of all, let me say there are no Harry Potter movies in this series that I don't like. I think every single one of them is good. It's just that I like some more than others. But the fact is, I like them all. So I have no bad reviews of any of the Harry Potter movies, but it's just that some I like more than others. But you're absolutely right. The first movie is my favorite. I know there are a lot of Harry Potter fans who would not pick the first movie as the best in the series, but I do. For me, it's the most charming. It's the most innocent. I will never ever forget seeing this film. My goodness, I can't believe it was 18 years ago. But yeah, I saw it 18 years ago when it came out in 2001, and just I'll never forget the first time that I saw Harry Potter's World for that very first time as directed by Chris Columbus, and seeing Hogwarts for the first time, and all the films are magical, but for me, there's just something about the Sorcerer's Stone. I'm just going to call it Sorcerer's Stone from here on in because that's how I call it over here.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and it's for me, it's the most magical of all the Harry Potter films. It's the most innocent of all the Harry Potter films, and
would you say it's the most fun?
What's that?
Would you say it's the most fun?
I would say it's the most fun. It's the most fun, and while there's certainly some darkness in this first Harry Potter movie, I mean, as we all know, the series is just going to get darker and darker and darker as it goes along. So this is the lightest of all the Harry Potter movies.
But that ain't saying much.
Yeah. As we know now, seeing all of the Harry Potter movies, one of the pleasures of watching the Harry Potter movies is to see the children in the film, grow up right before our very eyes as the movies progress. So in this first one, of course, they're just young kids. But I'm telling you, these are wonderfully talented child actors. And I'm not just talking about the main three of Harry, Ron, and Hermione, but I mean, I think all the child actors in this film really hold their own. I mean, there's not a slouch in the bunch. They're all very, very talented. And they hold their own very well against all of the adults in the film. You've got a marvelous cast. I mean, everybody in the cast is so good. I mean, too many names to mention, but I mean, regarding the child actors, I mean, I think they found the perfect main trio in Daniel Radcliffe as Harry, Rupert Grint as Ron, and Emma Watson as Hermione. And then you've got all these wonderful veteran actors, the late great Richard Harris, Robbie Coltrane, John Hurd, the late great Alan Rickman, Maggie Smith. I mean, these are all marvelously talented actors, and they really they work magic. They're in their performances. I really like Chris Columbus's direction. I know that the first movie, well, I mean, he directed the first two, so the first two movies in the series that Chris Columbus gets some criticism that he was too faithful to the books, but I've seen him in interviews where he defends his directing decision quite simply as saying, hey, when you're faithful, when you love something, you're faithful to it. And he loved the first couple of books. He got to direct the movie adaptations of the first two books. He loves the first two books, and he decided the way to go was to be faithful to those first two books.
Alan, I think you can't be too faithful to the books. I agree with what Ollie said, that you can't be too faithful. I mean, if you deviate too much, then
I'm not. Well, I don't mean I'm not saying that he had to copy the books word for word, page for page. I mean, there's no way Peter Jackson could have done The Lord of the Rings word for word, page for page, because every movie would be 5 hours long, and it wouldn't have worked. So I understand you have to adapt here and there, but
I don't think Chris Columbus did actually do word for word. I think you're right. He didn't do word for word. But and the thing is, though, people complain about the later movies and say, "Oh, they're too unfaithful." So either way, you can't really win.
You can't really win. You adapt the films the way you adapt them, and you make choices here and there. How what to cut, what to keep, what lines to change, what lines to change, whatever. But I'm just saying, I understand Chris Columbus's position when he says, if you love something, you're faithful to it, and that's why he chose the direction path that he chose on the first two films that he directed. I think his direction of the first film is just fine. I don't find the film boring. I mean, the movie's 2.5 hours, but I don't feel the length of it at all because I'm just so enraptured in this whole world that's presented here in the first film. The second film, I mean, we'll get to the second film next, of course, but the first film, I don't feel the length at all. I mean, I could have sat there for another hour or two. I mean, that's how much I love that first movie. As you say, some of the CGI effects haven't aged particularly well. I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. Some scenes where, when the ogre or whatever is, Harry's being swung around, and yeah, he does look kind of rubbery. Or some scenes when he's on the broom that's swinging around wildly. Yeah, he looks pretty rubbery. It does look pretty fake. Of course, if they did those CGI effects now, it would be much better. But overall, I thought the effects, for the most part, were good. Certainly good. I mean, there's so many great scenes in this movie. I mean, just the opening scene where we meet Professor Dumbledore and Miss McGonagall for the first time, and Hagrid, and they're on the streets, and Dumbledore's taking out the lights with his magic wand, taking out all the lights on the streets. Just from the word go, I'm caught up in the whole thing. I personally love the game of Quidditch as it's presented in the first film. I mean, what great fun! I mean, there's some variations of it later on in the series that I don't think work as well. I mean, I don't know why the hell anybody would want to play Quidditch in a rainstorm in the third movie. I mean, nobody would want to be out for a Quidditch game in a storm like that. But,
no. Alan, for me, this Quidditch match is the best of the series. Of all the Quidditch matches, the first film is the best Quidditch match for me.
I would agree. I would agree with that easily. It's the most fun. I mean, it's a dangerous sport, and I'm amazed they let the kids play it because they could easily be killed. But but then again, I guess some sports are just like that. I mean, auto racing, you could get killed, and some auto racers do get killed, unfortunately. But I'm just surprised that they let kids play this game. That's very dangerous. But you got to admit, it looks fun. It's exciting. So I like it as how it's presented here. All the various. I mean, the sets are fantastic. I'm glad that they've preserved these sets. I think you can take a tour of the Harry Potter sets, right? They do tours. Yeah,
I've actually been quite a few times. It's really good. Alan, if you get to come to the UK, go on the tour. It's worth it.
Oh, I'd love to. I'd absolutely love to. All the sets of Hogwarts are just wonderful. I mean, I'll never forget when they go into the dining hall for the very first time. I was like, wow, that is a gorgeous dining hall. That's amazing. So the sets are wonderful. Great production value on this. I think the script's a lot of fun. I think everybody's acting is fine. I mean, I think they found the perfect trio in Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, and Emma Watson to play the main trio of Harry, Ron, and Hermione. They're all
Hermione might be the best child actors that we've seen in film.
Yes, I mean, child actors can be really, hit or miss, but I think they found wonderful child actors here. And again, it's just a joy to watch them grow up as we continue to see them in the films, and seeing the fine young adults that they've become, and but here it's just seeing them as little kids. I mean they're great. Their acting here is just great. I love and adore the concluding section of the film where they're trying to get to the Sorcerer's Stone, or Philosopher's Stone, as you guys like to call it, and they're playing various different games, like the big chess game on the big chessboard is great. I never get tired of watching that scene. The scene where, even though the CGI is a little funky, the scene where they're trying to get the key, and Harry's he's trying to get the key, and all the keys attack him like bees.
Oh yeah,
that's a great moment. The two-headed dog is great.
three-head.
Yes, very, very good. And like I said, all the performances from the actors. I mean, it is sad that we've lost some. I mean, Richard Harris, I guess, was the first one to go. He was the first Dumbledore. He's only in the first 2 movies. He was a wonderful Dumbledore, and it has to be said, you probably know this, but Richard Harris only agreed to play Dumbledore because initially he didn't want to do it, but his granddaughter told him she would never speak to him again if he didn't play Dumbledore. So he did it for his granddaughter. That's it. He did it to make his granddaughter happy. Bless his heart. But he turned out to be a wonderful Dumbledore. I'm sorry we would only have him for one more movie. Rest in peace, Richard Harris. But he was a wonderful first Dumbledore. I still can't believe that Alan Rickman is gone. I mean, Severus Snape is his signature role, I think, of everything he played. And he was such a marvelous actor, and that rich. I can't even copy Alan Rickman, but that rich speaking voice that he had that could melt butter.
I think he's also known for his role in Die Hard as Hans Gruber. That's another great performance.
Oh yeah. And for a great comic performance, you should see him in Galaxy Quest, where I guess he's playing a Spock-like character. It's
that's quite a good film.
Obviously. But yeah, see him in Galaxy Quest. That's probably the best comical role I've ever seen Alan Rickman do. Yeah, he's still greatly missed. I mean, his death still came as a shock to me, so it's still sad that he's gone. But he was a marvelous actor. I loved him. But yeah, the whole movie it's just purely magical. Again, it's the most innocent. It's the lightest of all the Harry Potter films. Yeah. It's the most family friendly of all the Harry Potter films, I think. But I just love the whole world that it presents. All the performances are wonderful. At 2.5 hours, I wasn't bored. I just think it's a very magical film. It's magical in more ways than one. I really don't have anything else to add about it. Really,
what about the music? Did you mention John Williams' soundtrack?
Yeah, sorry. Yes, John Williams' musical score is classic. I mean, who doesn't know? I don't know how he comes up with all these great tunes that he comes up with, but he's a musical genius, John Williams, and he came up with yet another classic themes tune and a classic film score. So another winner, another home run hit out of the park by John Williams for the music score. So that's really it. I don't have anything else to add about it. I totally love and adore Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or Philosopher's Stone for you guys. And I enjoy all the films in the Harry Potter series, but the first movie for me personally is the best one. I just totally love it. So I give Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone / Philosopher's Stone an easy 10 out of 10.
Woo! Great. Thanks, Alan. So I guess it's my turn now. I'll try not to go on too long because we want to.
Actually, before you go on, I'll say I was kind of annoyed that they cut out the scene with Peeves the Poltergeist. Originally, Rick Mail was going to be in the film as Peeves the Poltergeist, but they cut his scene out, and it's kind of annoying because they've never released his scenes as Peeves.
Yeah, I would love to see that.
Yeah.
They've never released his scenes on Blu-ray or anywhere. It's really annoying. It's like, for God's sake, Rick Mail's been dead 5 years now. Just at least release those scenes of him as Peeves from the first film. Ugh, but yeah.
I mean, on that subject, in the video game of the Prisoner of Azkaban, Peeves appears in the game. I don't think it's Rick Mail, but somebody voices Peeves. I mean, he's in the game, so that's nice. But yeah, it is a shame he never made it to the movies. There were some characters that never made it to the movies. But anyway, Philosopher's Stone, / Sorcerer's Stone. I really like this film. This is a great film. I have a lot of nostalgia for it. I don't know if I'd say it's perfect, but it's a very good, very strong introduction to what will be a phenomenal film series. I think, this is actually the earliest memory I have of the cinema. I think this was the first film I ever saw at the cinema. I was 4 years old.
I agree.
I've got like flashes of it like in my memory. I can't remember major things, but I remember being taken to see it. But anyway, I pretty much agree with all of you. It's a wonderful film. It's not my personal favorite of the series. We'll get to that later. But I think I'm with Alan. You know, this is such an enrapturing film. It's a great experience. I mean, essentially, the audience are Harry in this film. We are on this journey with Harry. We are seeing everything for the first time, and we are experiencing this magical world, you know, from Diagon Alley to Gringotts to Hogwarts. I mean, and it's great. I mean, and the story itself is intriguing. I mean, not only the whole mystery surrounding the Philosopher's Stone, but also the mystery surrounding Harry and his backstory and his parents. You know, it's quite an emotional story, and I like that. And I mean, the scene with the mirror only contributes to that. Great acting from Daniel Radcliffe there when he's looking out for his mum and dad, and he's putting his hand on the mirror, trying to reach out for them. It's really good stuff. I mean, Chris Columbus did a great job at directing this movie. The irony is, this film has a British feeling to it, yet the director is American, which is kind of the ironic thing.
The American studio, Warner Brothers.
Yeah. But the films were made in England. That was the crucial thing that J.K. Rowling wanted. But anyway, I think the book is very well translated to film, and I don't think you can be too faithful. I agree with Jack. You know, people complain so much about them leaving stuff out. I mean, to be fair, the Philosopher's Stone is the shortest book. It's very short. So I think they managed to do quite well at getting it to 2.5 hours. To be brutally honest, it's very well made. The production design and the sets are fantastic. I mean, this is a thing that will remain consistent in all the movies. In all the movies, the sets and production, it's fantastic. I mean, Hogwarts is amazing. I mean, and when the CGI is there, it is great. I mean, obviously it's a bit dated now, but like when we first see Hogwarts, that is a great moment. When they're in the boats, and then the clouds open up, and then we see the castle, and then the music goes dun 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 dun, and you go, bloody hell, wow. Wow. It's really magical. It does take a while to get to Hogwarts, but when we get there, it's worth it. It's worth the build-up is worth the payoff. And I agree, the cast are fantastic. The child actors, you know, you can never find better. Daniel Radcliffe as Harry, perfect casting. Rupert Grint as Ron Weasley, perfect casting. And Emma Watson as Hermione Granger, perfect fucking casting. Just all three of them are great. They have such a great chemistry. There's actually a clip on YouTube of their screen test, and it's that scene when she's like, when they're reading the book, and she's like, Nicholas Flamel was the only known maker of the Philosopher's Stone, and they go, what? And she's like, honestly, don't you two read? And that's great. So I mean, that scene itself was great. But the other child actors they have are good. I mean, who play the students and whatnot. That's really cool. I love the introductions, like seeing Gringotts as well and Hagrid. Robbie Coltrane gives his best performance as Hagrid. Really good stuff. All the stuff with the Dursleys as well is great. This is their best film because they get more to do. It's really weird how they do just treat Harry like shit. And I'm surprised Harry never found the number for social services and just called to get out of there. But I don't know why, but oh well. I mean, there's that great scene as well when, as Jack said, when Vernon is saying, "Oh, there's no post on Sundays," and then all the letters come flying through the chimney, and then he's like, "We're going away, far away, where they can't find us. Daddy's gone mad, hasn't he?" They have to go away. This film is the most lighthearted, and it is the most charming of the series, and that's something you grow to appreciate a lot. And I think the finale of the film, the climax, is really epic when they take on the chess game. That's really cool stuff. And also when Harry encounters Professor Quirrell / Voldemort, that's really good too. And then there's the Quidditch game. The Quidditch game is fantastic. Best Quidditch game of the series, even though the CGI is slightly dated, but I'll forgive it because it's natural wear and tear. This film is nearly 20 years old. You know, I think we can forgive the CGI a little bit. Yeah, and I think Chris Columbus really does direct it well. I mean, he's great with the kids. I mean, especially that scene when they arrive in Hogwarts in the Great Hall, and Harry's being sorted into his house, and then the hat is going, ooh, difficult. Where to put you? And Harry's like, oh, not Slytherin, not Slytherin. It's really great stuff. I guess my only complaint with the film is that maybe I think it's a little too long. I think 2.5 hours is a little stretch. I think maybe 15 minutes could have been removed, but it does drag a little bit in it does take a while to get to Hogwarts, so maybe some of the setup could have been condensed, but it's not a major complaint because this is such a great movie, and I love the ending of the film when they announced the House Cup winnings, and Dumbledore awards the last points, and then Harry says goodbye to Hagrid, and he gives him the photo album. That's really lovely stuff, and I really like the friendship between the three of them, Harry, Ron, and Hermione. It is great, and again, Richard Harris, who's sadly only made it to 2 films. I think he's great as Dumbledore, and in my opinion, he's the best Dumbledore. No offense, Michael Gambon, but Richard Harris is the best Dumbledore for me. I do like Michael Gambon, and we will talk about Michael Gambon later, but for me, Richard Harris will always be the best. He's just such a warm character, and he definitely emulates the kind of the wise old professor who has a kind heart. I mean, that scene with the mirror when he's talking to Harry is really something special.
Ollie,
yeah.
Would you agree that although Michael Gambon turned out to be a very good Dumbledore in his own right, but would you agree that Richard Harris? I think he was a bit more fatherly to Harry than Michael Gambon was. He had an fatherly quality to him that I liked.
I guess so. Yeah, I guess you could see a slightly paternal side towards him. I mean, Michael Gambon, it definitely felt more like he was just his teacher. So I guess I would agree with that. Yeah. But yeah, I think, and the music score by John Williams is classic. What can I say? I mean, I like the scene with the troll as well when they're in the bathroom and Harry's trying to fight the troll. And
I'm here, by the way.
Huh? What?
I'm here. Sorry, sorry.
Oh, I didn't even know you went. Anyway, yeah, and also Jack said the scene in the forest, which is really good with Firenze the centaur. That's really cool, really creepy. So the film does have its dark moments, but it's not as dark as the later installments, certainly. But I really enjoyed this film, and it's a great introduction to the series. I have a lot of affection for it. My only minor complaint is that the CGI is dating a little bit, and the film is a little bit too long. But other than that, it's great. So I'm gonna close off by giving the Philosopher's Stone / the Sorcerer's Stone 9 out of 10. So now we move on to the second year of Hogwarts, with Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Now this is going to be a special one for Jack, as this is Jack's favorite film of the series. So Jack, take it away.
Okay, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I think this is a great film. This is, in fact, I'm going to be controversial here, but I'm going to say this is my favorite Harry Potter film. I mean, I love it. I mean, I've loved it ever since I was a kid. I think the story for Chamber of Secrets here is a lot more interesting than the first one. I mean, the first one had a really interesting story, but this one is even more interesting. I think the main cast here are even better than the first one. Daniel Radcliffe, I think you could tell in this one, even though he was great in the first one, you could tell he's more settled into the role as Harry Potter. I love the beginning of the film. Like the beginning is hilarious with Harry. He's now got his own room, and we see that his uncle is trying to entertain his boss. And I love the way the film opens with like the Harry Potter logo in the clouds, and then it goes down into that shot of the houses. It's a great way to open the film. The stuff with Dobby is hilarious. I love Dobby. Like, Harry Potter must not go back to Hogwarts this year. There is great danger for Harry Potter. I mean, Dobby is just a great character. And I love the scene where he's like, bad Dobby, and he's hitting his head against the the furniture or whatever, like that was hilarious. And when we see that he warns him of that there's something bad going in Hogwarts and he can't go back. And I love the whole scene like where they get the cake and he Dobby drops up all over like the boss's wife, and he's like I'm sorry about Harry. He's very disturbed young boy. Like like that was good. And then we see afterwards, like he puts bars on his window when he's like, you're not going back to that school. And we see Harry, like Ron arrives in a flying car. And one thing I will say it's great about the films is that they managed to recreate a lot of scenes in the book, which in great detail. I mean, the front cover of Philosopher's Stone, they recreated the train just like they did in the film, and the scene with the car. And that whole flying car scene is hilarious where, his uncle falls out of the window. That was great. And, the film has a great charm to it, like the first one. That's why I love Chamber of Secrets. This one, it's definitely a lot darker, but it has the same amount of charm and darkness in it as well. I mean...
It's kind of the last charming one of the series, really. After this, it gets very dark.
That's true, yeah. But I mean, I love the Weasleys, their house and all that, and Julie Walters. Yeah, she's not singing this time, thank God. And
look into his angel eyes.
Yeah. Oh Christ! Let's forget about that. I love the whole scene where they're he's at the Weasley's house and you see the Weasley's house. I mean, that's a great moment. And we get to see Ron's dad and stuff, and then how he's kind of fascinated with Muggles. And there are new characters in this one, but I think the new characters are great. Like you've got Jason Isaacs as Lucius Malfoy. He's very sinister in this film, and he's kind of like an elitist, and we see that he's kind of working with Voldemort. And he's really good in this film. He's really like very entertaining, very sort of dry as well. You got Kenneth Branagh in the film as Gilderoy Lockhart. And he's hilarious in this movie. Kenneth Branagh is just great, like magical me, like hello Harry Potter and welcome.
Celebrity is as celebrity does.
Yeah. He's like, how could you spend a better detention, Harry? Than spending it with me, signing my fan mail. He's just really hilarious. I mean, he's a egotistical prick, but Kenneth Branagh is great.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see like all the ladies are kind of, falling for him, like even Hermione. It's quite funny. Yeah. But he's great, and I kind of like the way that Ron's not impressed with him. I mean, talking about the rest of the film, I mean, I think the sets for this one are even better than the first film. I mean, the sets are brilliant, especially the chamber itself when you see that later on. But I think the whole story is really interesting. The whole idea of Tom Riddle's diary, like how he's preserved his 16-year-old self within the book. And I loved all the flashback scenes where Harry gets the diary and he starts writing in it. And he's, he's transported back 50 years ago and he thinks Hagrid's the one. I mean, there's a lot more intrigue and we get a lot more backstory in Hogwarts in this one, which is great. I mean, there are some funny scenes in this as well, some pretty humorous scenes. Like I like the scene with, Harry and Hermione and Ron where they make the pollen juice potion and, they basically turn into Crabbe and Goyle and like they're with, Malfoy. And, I love the scene where, Hermione's in the toilet and she turns around and she's this cat, basically. that was hilarious. And, the film, it has its charm as well. Like, I think the whole thing about, like, the chamber opening after 50 years is really interesting. How we find out more about, the founders, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, Gryffindor, and Slytherin, like how Slytherin left and, he didn't want to, people who were born of, muggles to be taught magic. And we see that when the chambers open, that it'll purge all those who are Muggle born and kill them, basically. I found that really interesting, and it definitely is, I think, more intriguing, and this film's definitely darker than the first one. I mean, and I love the scene where Professor McGonagall's explaining that stuff. I mean, the film as well, like it's interesting how Hagrid and Dumbledore, they get taken away at one point. Hagrid to Azkaban, and Dumbledore's basically told to step down. All that stuff is really good, and you got some other great characters like Moaning Myrtle. that was a really good scene. And the whole story is quite interesting. How we see Hermione comes petrified, and all these other people become petrified. That's a great moment in the film. And I mean, there are some funny moments as well. I love the Quidditch scene between Harry and Malfoy, and when Gilderoy Lockhart goes to repair his arm, and his arm basically turns to rubber. That was quite good. And there are some quite dark, intriguing moments, like the scene with the blood on the wall with Filch's cat. The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. That's a good scene. And I do like the scene where Harry is, he goes to the forest and he encounters the spiders. I mean, there's some great moments. I love the scene where Harry and Ron at the start, they can't get through the barrier at 9 3/4, so they have to take the car. And Ron breaks his wand, and there's that scene where he tries to make Malfoy eat slugs, and he's throwing up slugs himself, and then Malfoy calls Hermione a mudblood, which is interesting because we see Malfoy is basically an elitist. But I mean, I think the ending of the film is great. I love the ending where Harry goes into the before that, where he goes into Dumbledore's office, and the Phoenix turns into ashes, and then after that, we see that Harry, he's in the Chamber of Secrets, and I think the Chamber of Secrets set itself is just amazing. I mean, they've done a really great job with that. And it wasn't CGI. I mean, the sets here are just great. And I love when they find out that Gilderoy Lockhart's basically a coward. Yeah. So I mean, that was a really good scene. And the ending is fantastic. Where Harry, he comes across Tom Riddle, and we find out that Ginny's been doing all this stuff, and she was the one who opened the chamber by accident. We see that Tom Riddle's coming back through the book. I mean, I just think it's great. When we find out, and that that revelation at the end as a kid, was a really great twist. Tom Marvolo Riddle, I am Voldemort, Lord Voldemort. That was great. And the scene with the basilisk is just awesome. That final, action scene is one of the best action scenes. Probably my favorite action scene in Harry Potter, where he has to fight the basilisk and it gets blinded by the phoenix, and he stabs it at the end, and he gets the tooth of the phoenix, of the basilisk, and he puts it into the book, and kills Tom Riddle. That's just a great ending of the film. And and I like the end, where the phoenix cures Harry with the tears. That was good. Yeah, I mean, and the ending I think is great. The ending with Dumbledore in his office, and he's like, "Oh, you pulled the sword of Gryffindor, Harry. It must have taken you real courage and loyalty to do that." And and I love the ending where Harry gives his sock to Dobby, and Dobby is freed, and Lucius Malfoy is like, "You cost me my servant." That was a brilliant moment. And yeah, I mean, and that's sort of the ending of the film. And the ending, no, actually, the ending with Hagrid, where he comes into Hogwarts and Hermione and Harry and all are clapping. That's great. And when they're reunited with Hermione, and I forgot to mention, Nearly had this Nick John Cleese as well. He's great in this film. Sadly, this is his last appearance in the series, but
yeah, I don't know why they didn't bring him back.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the ending is great, where they all applaud Hagrid, and that's the end of the film. And even though it is quite long, it is 2 hours and 40 minutes. The pacing for me is better than the first one. Okay, maybe you can argue that it's too long, 2 hours 40, but it doesn't really bother me. And I agree with Ollie. I don't think any film can be too faithful to the book. But I think it's a great film. It really is a fantastic Harry Potter film. and it's my favorite of the series, easily my favorite. I mean, I used to have the DVD of this as a kid, and I used to watch the hell out of it. And it's a great Harry Potter film. It really is great, and I love the ending where Gilderoy Lockhart, he uses the spell and it backfires on him, and he doesn't know who he is at the end. That was great. So I'm going to close off by giving Chamber of Secrets a 10 out of 10.
Ooh. So, thank you, Jack. And we now move on to Harry.
Oh, Chamber of Secrets for me. Harry Potter is one of the most. It is literally to me one of the most consistent franchises today, as it's one of the few franchises where the sequels for the most part get better than the original, and Chamber of Secrets is one of them. This movie to me it improves vastly over the original, over Philosopher's Stone in every single way. It has better acting, it improves the effects, it improves expanding the Harry Potter universe. It feel I you and for the final movie to be directed by Chris Columbus, this was a worthy fight. This was a worthy one, and I and this movie, this is also the final light-hearted tone in the franchise, because after this, the franchise would get darker and grittier, and things would go to shit. So I do even so I do love I do love that this movie was yeah, I do love I still love the light-hearted tone of these first two movies, and this is also this one thing I don't guess about the sequels is that how come our Harry constantly goes back to stay with the fucking Dursleys each summer? Why not stay with the Weasleys, for crying out loud?
To be fair though, Harry, he only just met them in the Chamber of Secrets.
Oh yeah. I mean, well, yeah. I know this was the first movie he met them, because he didn't go to the Burrow until Ron rescued him in the flying car. But yeah, so yeah, I know what you mean. So I guess he didn't have anywhere else to go. But and this is also the movie that where we are introduced to one of the best, most beloved characters in the franchise, Dobby the house elf, and even though Dobby has a bigger role in the books than he does in the movies, he is adorable, and yeah, and it's awesome to see Ron's family. We get to see more of Molly Weasley. We get hints of Harry and Ginny's romance. We get to see Arthur Weasley for the first time, and we even get to see more of the rivalry between Harry and Draco, and we're introduced to Lucius Malfoy, Draco's father, who is a bastard, and we even get told that there is prejudice in the wizarding world. That's pureblood wizards. They are convinced that they are superior to half-bloods and muggle-borns and muggles, which is bullshit. So they
Although
can't.
I love the fact that J.K. added that in, though. Sorry to interrupt, but it's such a nice thing that she's done. She's grounded this universe almost in a way to kind of mirror our universe. That like in the wizarding world, in our world, there are discriminations, there are prejudices, there's racism. There's all of those same things. It's quite mature actually for something that features kids. For them to do that, like using the words mudblood, all of that.
I agree. I know, right? That what makes this the most relatable franchise for me, because it is a fantasy film, but it's a fantasy film that mirrors our world with those themes. That's literally what the Wizarding world would be like if it existed in real life. When Draco does call Hermione, you filthy little mud blood. why did Ron's wand have to be bent at the time? Because Malfoy deserved that eat slugs spell, and also we even get introduced to the.
They have a spell called Eat Slugs.
Yeah, yeah, that is. I know, right? That is that's the perfect defense mechanism from bullies, and also we get introduced to the concepts of a wizard dueling, which we didn't get in the first movie, and the action scenes here are certainly more confident and up. So like the Quidditch match for me. This Quidditch match to me, even though I'm not a fan of Quidditch, this is the best Quidditch match in the franchise. It is exhilarating seeing Harry go up against Malfoy, who's the Seeker of Slytherin this time, and they have to outrun the.
It's more of a chase sequence than a Quidditch match. It's more like them being chased by the bludger.
Well, yeah, that's what I love about it. It's more of a chase scene. That it's more about the chase than about the match. It's exhilarating seeing them attempt to outrun the bludger that's been hexed by Dobby, and we even get introduced to the concept of parcel tongue, in which he realizes he has the gift of speaking to snakes, just like. And this is a rare thing in the wizarding world, and we find out this is why the Sorting Hat recommended Slytherin from him because of his parcel tongue gift and his connection to Voldemort. But Harry's like, no, I belong in Gryffindor because my heart says so, and that's an awesome message that Dumbledore says at the end. It's not our abilities which show us what we truly are. It is our choices. And this was such a pitch perfect final performance from Richard Harris as Dumbledore, because after this he would be recast as Michael Gambon and Jude Law, and the finale of this movie is where things start to get serious with where we meet Aragog in the Forbidden Forest, and Hermione has sadly been petrified by the basilisk. So that full on raises the stakes. You're like, damn, how are Harry and Ron going to succeed in saving Hogwarts without Hermione's cleverness? And we find out that Gilderoy Lockhart, he's a fucking liar and a fraud who thankfully gets his comeuppance when he gets obliviated, and Harry and the basilisks and final showdown in the chamber. It is an epic. It's one of the most underrated Harry Potter climaxes, and it brilliantly ties into Deathly Hallows Part 2, it's all, and we even learn about the four founders of Hogwarts and also Tom Riddle. We find out Lord Voldemort's true identity, and Tom Marvolo Riddle, who Harry fights in a younger form in the chamber, that diary which he destroys, that will be significant in the final installments of this series, and the ending is the happiest and most optimistic Harry Potter ending, where we see Harry thankfully frees Dobby from Lucius's control, and Dobby gets his kick-ass moment when he's like, "You shall not harm Harry Potter," and just blasts him, and then Hagrid is thankfully released from Azkaban, and then Harry hugs Hagrid and everybody applauds. It's beautiful, and
moving, isn't it?
I know, right? Super moving, damn. And also, although if I had to criticize my one flaw with this movie, is that it didn't need to be 2 hours and 40 minutes. This is the longest Harry Potter movie ever made, and Gilderoy's line, look at the time, we've been here nearly 4 hours. That's literally how I felt in places in the middle act of this movie. Yeah, the middle act to this movie made it feel 4 hours, but yeah, other than that, this is still
Harry, the irony is that the first two films, which are considered to be too long, are actually the ones that got extended editions. Riddle me that.
I know, I cannot believe that they made them even longer. I thought they were. Yeah, I know, right? It's the shorter ones that deserve the extended editions. To me, yeah, but yeah, but Chamber of Secrets. Other than that, this is similar to Philosopher's Stone. Yet another classic in this series, and it is even better than Philosopher's Stone in all areas. And after this, the franchise would only get magnificent from here. So yeah, I'm going to rate Chamber of Secrets it's exactly the same rating as Philosopher's Stone, a 9 out of 10 and 4 stars out of 5.
Awesome. Also, it's worthy to note this is Chris Columbus's last movie that he directed of the series. Coming behind David Yates, who's directed fucking millions, including the Fantastic Beasts series. So yeah, by Chris Columbus. So Alan, what do you think of the Chamber of Secrets?
Okay, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Yeah, I like this movie a lot. I think it's a great Harry Potter film. My heart belongs to the first movie, Sorcerer's Stone, or Philosopher's Stone. But Chamber of Secrets, I mean, this is an excellent Harry Potter movie in its own right. It's quite magical in its own way. Lots of wonderful scenes and set pieces and acting and the adventure as Harry and friends are trying to solve the mystery of the Chamber of Secrets. You're also noticing, as the kids are growing up, I think I'm noticing in this movie that Daniel Radcliffe is his voice is starting to change. He's starting to go through those growing things where his voice is changing, because I think his voice
and Rupert Grint's voice also starts to break.
The boys in the cast, their voices are starting to crack a bit because they're going through those growing pains where their voices change. So that was a bit amusing, but I think it's quite plainly there in the movie. But yeah, no, it's got a lot of great, wonderful moments. I mean, I never get tired of the scene where Harry and Ron are trying to get to Hogwarts on time, and in Ron's flying car. I never get tired of that. And it turns out the flying car has a mind of its own, which is great fun, especially when they land in that big tree, and the tree has a mind of its own beside, which is a lot of fun. Lots of great acting in this film. I mean, the regular cast are all wonderful. I mean, they're going to be wonderful in the whole movie series. I mean, I have no complaints at all about Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, Rupert Grint, or any of the main players like Maggie Smith, Alan Rickman, Robbie Coltrane, and all the rest. Richard Harris, God bless him. Richard Harris in his second and final performance as a Dumbledore. Actually, he wasn't particularly well when he started shooting Chamber of Secrets, but thankfully he made it through the shoot. But sadly, it was not to be for him to be anymore.
In that scene when we first see him, when he comes into the potions room with McGonagall, and he's like, when he says his first line, you can kind of hear in his voice that he does sound a little bit more groggy than he did in the first one.
Yeah, he definitely sounds a bit fragile in this movie. That you could tell pretty quite plainly that he wasn't a well man at this time. Sadly, I mean, I'm just grateful he made it through the shoot and he still delivered a wonderful performance, including that wonderful little monologue he gives Harry at the end of the film about you are worthy of being in Gryffindor because you have all of the qualities and blah blah blah. And although you have some Slytherin elements in you as well, as we discover, Harry can talk to snakes. Although we were not revealed the true reason of how he can talk to snakes until the final film, but we find out he has this ability to talk to snakes. Wonderful cast. I mean, I have to make mention, of course, of Kenneth Branagh, the one and only Kenneth Branagh as Gilderoy Lockhart. Branagh has always been one of my favorite actors. Not that I've seen him in everything he's done, but of course, all the Shakespeare stuff he's done, for the most part, is brilliant.
Also, Alan, he was in the Murder on the Orient Express, which actually he directed as well.
Yes,
came out a couple of years ago. I thought that was quite a decent film.
Yes. And it actually turned into a minor box office hit, and I think there's definitely interest in him doing Death on the Nile.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that because I love the Peter Ustinov Death on the Nile, and I prefer Peter Ustinov as Poirot, but Kenneth Branagh.
I understand.
Good.
But I've got a soft spot for Kenneth Branagh, and I enjoyed his Poirot on Murder on the Orient Express. So if they do Death on the Nile, sure, I'll go see it. But he's always been one of my favorite actors, and of course, he also has talent as a director as well. But here we see him as Gilderoy Lockhart. He's this very egotistical fop, this pompous fop author who thinks he's so wonderful, and Branagh kind of hams it up, but wonderfully so. He's just so egotistical. And yes, as Jack mentioned, the scene where Harry's in detention with him, and Lockhart says to him, there's nothing better than you to be in detention with me, as I read my fan mail or something like that. I don't know the actual lines, but exactly. But anyway, it's a funny scene. I mean, Branagh, he's just plain funny. He's just funny in this movie. So it's great to have him on board. That's one of the strengths of the Harry Potter movies. I mean, all the big name actors that they get to appear in all the Harry Potter films. And as you know, Branagh's ex-wife, Emma Thompson, she'll be in the next movie as one of the teachers. And I mean, they bring in all kinds of big names to be in these films, which is always a treat to see. I was just like, I wonder who they're going to bring in, big name actors who they're going to bring in for this Harry Potter film. But this time around, it's Kenneth Branagh, and he's quite wonderful as Gilderoy Lockhart. It's a really good adventure. I love all the stuff with solving the mystery of the Chamber of Secrets. It definitely gets darker than the first film because I mean we see like blood on the walls, some sentences painted on the walls in blood, that kind of thing. There's definitely an air of mystery and menace to this particular movie, although it's certainly not without its wonderful moments of comedy. I mean, just the opening with Ron and Harry in the flying car is great. I think
the slug scene as well.
where Ron has to eat slugs. His wand gets broken. And I think this is the first movie where we are introduced to the character of Moaning Myrtle.
Yes.
Am I correct? Yeah, Moaning Myrtle. She's the ghost of a girl who was killed in the girls' toilet years ago, I think, and don't see the name of the actress who plays her, but she's very okay. Shirley Henderson.
Yes.
Yeah, she's very, very funny. Yeah, I'm Moaning Myrtle. She's
funny. She was in Doctor Who with David Tennant. Well, in a David Tennant episode, The Love and Monsters.
Oh, that episode. She was in that one.
Yeah, she was the one. Ursula, the one who got absorbed.
Oh, you're right. That was, oh my goodness, that was her. Wow, that was her.
She was in Sal and Ollie as well as, I think, Ollie's wife in that film.
Could be. But anyway, yeah, she's quite funny as Moaning Myrtle, so I love the introduction to her in this story. We got another fun Quidditch match in this one, and I think there's like a little homage to Star Wars in the Quidditch match in this one, because when they go underneath the bleachers, it's like the TIE fighters and going through the trench in Star Wars. I definitely picked up a.
Funny enough, the music sounded very similar to Attack of the Clones at that point. Like, in the Attack of the Clones, there's that chase in the beginning. The music goes da 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 da. Like it's hard for me to describe, but you know what I mean. When Harry and Malfoy are in the trench part. The music goes dun 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 dun. It's just something like Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, kind of, sort of. But I thought that was an interesting take on the Quidditch game, where they're going underneath the bleachers, and it's almost like going through the trench in Star Wars. in the Death Star battle. So I thought that was a nice little homage to that. I also want to make mention. I forgot to mention in reviewing the first movie, but also mention Tom Felton as Draco Malfoy, who's Harry's arch nemesis throughout the series. That I enjoyed his performance in the first film, and here in the second one. He's suitably evil, this kid. Although he's made a little bit more sympathetic towards the end of the series. But he's a rotten little kid, Draco. And so I thought Tom Felton was very good here. We're also introduced to Draco's father, who's the wonderfully evil Jason Isaacs as Lucius Malfoy. He's scary. This is a really scary guy to have as a father.
Nicely.
Yeah, exactly.
He makes Snape look like a pussy.
In some ways. And of course, I have to mention Dobby, the house elf. Of course, I like Dobby. You know, he's a cute little elf, very funny.
But I thought you said Doggy.
Dobby. Yes, yeah, he's very good. I like him a lot in this. You know, he lends wonderful comedy to the proceedings. As I say, everybody in the cast is wonderful. There's no bad performances everywhere. Chris Columbus's direction, I think, is very good as well. The only criticism that I can lobby at this movie, I guess I'm with Harry on this one, is that this is a longer Harry Potter movie. I guess the longest of all the Harry Potter films, and it feels long. As Harry and company are trying to unravel the mystery of Chamber of Secrets, there's a lot of scenes of the characters standing around and talking, and it drags. This one kind of drags a bit. That's really my one and only criticism of this otherwise great Harry Potter movie, is that it does kind of drag in places. I don't think it needed to be as long as it did. Again, I mean, I have no complaints about Chris Columbus's direction of everything. This is still a very magical, very, very entertaining Harry Potter movie. And of course, as everything picks up towards the end, it really, really picks up. Once Harry finally gets into the Chamber of Secrets and he's fighting the big snake and he's unraveling the mystery of Tom Riddle, and he has to save Ginny Weasley. And all of that stuff is great. I mean, the movie really packs a punch in the finale.
Basically, you think just the second act is just a drag?
Not the second act, but I mean, some of the first act drags, some of the middle, I would say, drags a bit. Again, there's a lot of scenes of actors standing around talking, lots of talking going on as Harry and friends are trying to solve the mystery. But I mean, I wasn't bored per se. I think I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, okay, let's pick up the pace a little bit here. I don't think the movie needed to be as long as it was, but that doesn't detract from how entertaining it is. I mean, even whenever there's a point in Chamber of Secrets where the action drags a bit, there's always another great entertaining scene that picks it up. There's always something, just around the corner, that's coming, that's going to be very entertaining and pick things up again. And it's worth sticking with, definitely. So all things considered, I like Chamber of Secrets a lot. I mean, I think only the slow pacing of it works against it, but when I look back at this second Harry Potter movie, I think that's really my one and only criticism of it. Otherwise, I think it's great. It's still very entertaining, very magical in its own right. You just got to stick with it for the film's lengthy running time. But I mean, there's more than enough stuff here to keep things very, very entertaining and keep the movie moving. So I like it a lot. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. So I will give this Harry Potter film, Chamber of Secrets, a 9 out of 10.
Oh, excellent. Okay, so my opinion of the Chamber of Secrets is I'm kind of with Alan and Harry on this one. I really enjoyed the Chamber of Secrets.
You don't like it?
Well, let me finish, and then I'll say. But no, I really like this one. I've always really enjoyed the Chamber of Secrets. I think it's a tiny bit better than the first one, actually. I think it managed to just about be better than the first one for me. The first one was a great introduction. It kind of brought you into the world. Now we can just tell a new story. We're in the world. We're fully established. It doesn't have to do the setup. It can just tell its own story and continue the story that was left open. And I think it does it very well. Again, it's not perfect. It has a couple of issues, but nothing major. I think the story's just intriguing. I like the mystery surrounding the Chamber of Secrets. I think it's a more intriguing mystery. It's slightly darker. And I like that this film goes back in time in Tom Riddle, and we get to know more about Voldemort as a character this time. And that's really cool. The cast are always good. Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, obviously, as Alan mentioned, they sound a bit different. No, they haven't had voice implants. Their voices are just changing. They're going through puberty.
Their balls are dropped.
Yeah, balls? Where?
They've dropped their they've dropped their golden snitches, let's just say.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Oh, whatever, however you want to describe it. So yeah, they've basically they're going through puberty, but their performances are still great. I mean, there were moments in the first film when Daniel Radcliffe's voice cracked a little bit. You could hear like, oh, okay, he's changing there. I mean, and Emma Watson again is very good, even though she probably has a little less to do in this one because she gets petrified and she's kind of out of some of the film. She has less screen time, but I still think this one is just exciting. It's fun. The action is great. I love the scene when Harry and Ron are in the flying car and trying to get to Hogwarts, and then Harry nearly falls out of the car, hanging onto the door. That's really intense. The scene in the forest with the spiders when they see Aragog is really cool.
Oh, yes. I forgot to mention the spider scene. That's creepy. That's very...
And Alan, did you know the spider Aragog is voiced by Julian Glover?
I did not. How about that?
Yeah, very famous actor. Obviously appeared in Doctor Who, James Bond, Indiana Jones, Star Wars, and now Harry Potter. He's been in everything, man. I mean...
Great. Way to go, Julian Glover.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the spider sequence is great. And also when the car ends up getting trashed by the Whomping Willow, which is the big tree in Hogwarts, that was pretty cool. And I think there's a few more practical effects as well, which is good. But the CGI in this one is definitely a lot better than the first one. Not that the first CGI was bad, but this one is definitely better. The Quidditch match, or chase, I guess I could call it, is very good. I do prefer the Quidditch game in the first film, but this one is still great. It is more of a chase, and also it's Harry and Malfoy's rivalry is growing stronger, which is interesting. So I think they're giving Tom Felton more to do. So I like that. I also like the film is slightly more mature than the first one. It has a kind of deals with the themes of prejudice and discrimination and racism, with the whole, Hermione being discriminated for having non-magical parents and being called a mudblood and all of that, which is really interesting. I like that they play on that, and I like that Hagrid is the one that comforts her, which is really nice. He says, don't think on it for 1 minute, which is really good. There's also that funny scene when Ron he gets the slugs out of his mouth, which is disgusting, but a very amusing sequence. I love that the spell was called Eat Slugs. It's so endearing, isn't it? I mean, who would ever teach the kids to the spell of Eat Slugs? Why would you teach the kids that? But fair enough. It makes for a funny scene. I mean, this film still has some level of charm, not to the extent of the first one, but it is charming in its own way, despite being slightly darker, especially with the red blood writing on the wall, which as the chamber has been opened, and then the cat hanging on the peg, petrified, which is really good. And also David Bradley as Filch has a great acting moment there when he's like, you murdered my cat, I'll kill ya, I'll kill ya. I was worried for Harry there. I was like, shit, he was gonna actually kill him, but
shit.
No. Oh, and yes, Richard Harris is. I have to mention Richard Harris in his sadly, his final performance as Dumbledore. For me, he is the best Dumbledore, and he will always be the best Dumbledore.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, and you can tell his voice is slightly more groggy in this film, but he was clearly not very well, as Alan said. But I commend him for getting through it. And he had some great scenes with Harry. Like there's that scene in the office when he says, "Oh, is there something you wish to tell me?" And then that scene in the office at the end as well, when he's like, it's not our abilities that make us who we are; it is our choices. And there's also another scene he has, which when we see the minister Cornelius Fudge, we see him for the first time, and he says, he takes Dumbledore away. He like suspends him, I think, and he's like, help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who ask for it. I just love the fact that Dumbledore's so wise, and I think Richard Harris totally encapsulates the character so well, which is why it's such a shame that he died. So I just want to take a moment before I carry on just to give him a round of applause.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
Richard Harris, you will be missed.
Yes.
Can I also say something? I think Chamber of Secrets is kind of the end of an era in some ways because it's the last one with Richard Harrison. It's the last of the sort of charming Harry Potter films before they grow up a bit more. But yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I guess you're right in a way. Obviously, the story is very much going to continue, but in terms of tonally, yes, I suppose it is the end of an era, and also Richard Harris as well passing. But I also love Kenneth Branagh in this film as Gilderoy Lockhart. I think he's funny. And there's that great scene when he tries to repair Harry's arm and he ends up making it worse and like his arm.
Oh yes, yes. I should have mentioned that. Yeah. Wonderfully. Yeah.
Which is good.
No more broken bones. What? There's no bones to begin with.
Yeah, much more flexible there. Yeah, he turns out to be a bit of a narcissistic prick who basically is a coward and he's a fraud. He's just been wiping people's memories. Yeah, and taking credit for them, and Harry and Ron obviously suss him out, and in the end Lockhart wipes his own memory, which is quite funny. Like, oh, this is an odd sort of place, isn't it? Do you live here? He's like, no, really? Oh, and he knocks the rock on, and then when they're flying out, and he says, amazing, this is just like magic.
I like the ending where it says, do you know who I am, or whatever.
Yeah, there's a post-credit scene where they have the sign in Diagon Alley on the shop, and it's Gilderoy Lockhart, who am I? Which is quite funny. But yeah, I think that
I forgot to mention as well, like the Cornish pixie scene was quite funny as well.
Yeah,
yes, the pixies, yes.
Freshly cooked Cornish pixies. That scene was good. Although he's very irresponsible to just let them loose and then, without even telling them what to do, and then he's like fucks off into his office. So, he could have got fired for that, but whatever. I mean, it was quite a funny scene. And then Neville getting hung on the chandelier, and he's like, "Why is it always me?" Bless him. I mean, his character turns out to go on quite a journey, as we'll see in the later films. But yeah, the Basilisk scene, the climax of the film in the chamber. I think the chamber, once again, the design, the production design and sets are fantastic. The chamber looks really interesting. Like, it's really dark and slimy and green, and it looks really disgusting. Like all those skulls and everywhere. And when Harry's facing off with Riddle, that's really cool. And then the Basilisk comes along and he gets the sword out of the hat and starts like waving it, and in the end stabs the Basilisk and gets the fang. It's really, really cool stuff. And then when he saves Ginny as well, it's weird that Ginny's kind of focused on in this film, but then she's not really in it much. It's weird. She doesn't get a lot of screen time.
Really.
They don't actually give Ginny a lot in the movies, which is weird.
We don't see her again until the Half-Blood Prince, really.
Well, yeah, I mean, basically, yeah. I mean, she's kind of in the films, in the
It's funny when Malfoy says, "Oh, look, Potter, you got yourself a girlfriend." Little did Harry know that he
Harry knows to be his future wife.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the dueling club scene is great when Harry and Malfoy have the fight, and then Harry starts speaking pastime. That's really interesting. There's so many more. There's a few more revelations in this film, which are interesting regarding Harry and his character. And it really is interesting. And again, seeing Hogwarts is just magical. also the scene with Miriam Margolyes as Professor Sprout. They have the Mandrake. That's quite a good scene. And when Neville faints, he's oh no, Longbottom's been neglecting his earmuffs. I'll just leave him there. But yeah, there is a lot of charm in this film. And Columbus is clearly very good with the kids, and that ending is very, very moving when Hagrid comes in and Harry says, "It's not Hogwarts without you," and then they all clap and cheer, and the music's all soaring. It's all very nice, and it is a really nice film. With a few dark moments. My only complaint, dagnammit, is yes, this film is too damn long. This film is 2 hours and 40 minutes long. That is epic length. I mean, the first movie was long enough, but my God, this one did not need to be 2 hours 40 minutes. As much as I love the world that Rowling creates, I think for a film, I think as well, because this film is aimed for a family audience, right? They're not like young kids are not going to sit there for 2 hours 40 minutes unless they've got a lot of patience. Like for the cinema, like, I'm surprised that I sat through it because I was 5 when this film came out, and it was 2 hours.
Feed them lots of candy, lots of popcorn.
Yeah. I still have the VHS tape of Chamber of Secrets, and that's how I first saw it. Sadly, I didn't get to see it on the big screen. And in that Mizzle act, I would go off and do other things because I was bored by it. It's far too much exposition. I didn't get invested until the final.
I don't think I said I was bored. Like, I just, like Alan, I just felt like, come on, you know, it's just padding. Like, there's a bit of padding. They can just pick up the pace a bit more. I don't know. I mean, the pace is good, but there are times in the middle where it does slow down, and it's like.
Well, I have to disagree with you. I think even though this film is longer, I think the pace is slightly better than the Philosopher's Stone. But I can understand why you think it's too long, 2 hours 40. But yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I'd say the pacing for both is kind of on equal footing. Although I think this one slightly less because it's longer. But I'm not saying that it's a major issue. I can get through it. I can watch this film, really enjoy it, but it is just too damn long. So why I got an extended cut, I'll never know. Once again, the music by John Williams is fantastic, and I think it's a really great continuation of the story, and I always enjoy it. And I did actually say I think this is slightly better than the first one. I just think it's more interesting. And Dobby's a great character. Dobby's funny. He's charming, and sadly, he wouldn't get many appearances in the films. I mean, after this, he doesn't come back to the Deathly Hallows Part 1, which is a shame. And Toby Jones is wonderful as Dobby, and I love the scenes with him and Harry, especially towards the end when Harry...
It's Toby Jones? I didn't know that.
Yeah, Toby Jones. When he's like, Master has given Dobby a sock. I mean, that was really good. That was really funny.
I'll put my sketch.
And also mention that... Lucius Malfoy, as well, Draco's prick father. He's good as well. I really like Jason. I like Jason Isaacs as an actor. I think he's a very sinister guy. He plays villains really well. He actually, a year later, he played Captain Hook in the Peter Pan movie, the 2003 live-action remake, and he was very good in that as well. He's got this kind of very low, like he's like got this well-spoken voice, and the way he does Malfoy when he goes, "You lost me, my servant." I think he's very smart. I mean, gradually the character becomes a bit more, should we say, a bit more of a wimp as the series progresses. I think his fear of Voldemort definitely transcends. But yeah, I mean, just to sort of close off on a final note, I really like this film, and I'm going to score it a 9 out of 10, just like the first one. But yes, and it is the longest Harry Potter movie, and I think after this they realised that 2 hours 40 is too long for a Harry Potter film. But hey ho, the Goblet of Fire came close. So, but before Goblet of Fire, we move on to The Prisoner of Azkaban, directed by Alfonso Cuaron, released in 2004. So there was a bit of a gap between 2 and 3. So we return now to Jackie Boy.
Yeah. Yeah. So Prisoner of Azkaban. I think this is a really good film. I mean, of course, I will always say.
Really?
Yes. Well, I will always say Chamber of Secrets is my favorite, and Philosopher's Stone is a very close second, but Prisoner of Azkaban, this is a very good film nonetheless. This is definitely a lot more mature than the first two. I mean, the second one was darker, but this goes even darker than that.
Yeah,
I mean, I think
Scary Fairy of Chris Columbus. Alfonso Cuarón brings the weird and quirky.
yeah. I mean, I think the direction here by Alfonso Cuarón is quite good. The story to this one, I think, is really good. Although, interestingly enough, this is the only Harry Potter film which doesn't involve Voldemort, which is interesting.
Yeah, actually, you're right.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think the story here is very good. Like the whole stuff with Sirius Black, Gary Oldman in the film is great. I love the opening to the film with Harry's aunt coming along, and she turns her into a balloon, which is hilarious. That was a funny scene where he like basically made her into a human balloon, and she flew out the window.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, the film, you have some interesting scenes like the scene where Harry leaves. He basically packs up his stuff and leaves, and he gets on board the bus. And the bus is very interesting how it it zooms across, and I love that gag where like there's this old woman crossing the road, and the bus comes to a halt. That was funny.
think it's weird. It's gonna be a bumpy ride.
Yeah, and the decapitated talking head, that was interesting. No, I mean the film. It's good to see the characters back once again. We see that they've matured more in this film. I love the scene where Harry meets Ron and Hermione again. Before he goes to Hogwarts, that was good. And I think and I think the story here is interesting about Sirius Black and how he's escaped from Azkaban, how he's basically innocent. I mean, the film, I think the production design is great once again. We do have a couple of weird scenes, like that scene with the choir with the frogs. That was a bit weird. It wasn't in the book, and even J.K. Rowling thought that was a strange scene for Alfonso Cuarón to add in, but nonetheless, it's still amusing. Yeah, I mean the film pace is pretty good. And that's because it's shorter than the first two.
I think it's only 2 hours 20 minutes. This one, so it is a bit shorter than the first two.
Yeah, which probably helps. I mean, Chamber of Secrets is the longest one, but then again, that's my favorite Harry Potter film. But this one definitely, didn't need to be 2 hours 40. I mean, I think Michael Gambon as Dumbledore. I mean, he's not bad in this film. I mean, he does a solid job, but I mean, he will never replace Richard Harris for me. I mean, but he does a good job as Dumbledore.
Yeah. I think they purposely didn't give him that much to do because of Richard Harris. They wanted to be respectful.
Yeah, or maybe he just wasn't in the book that much. I don't know, but
yeah, that too.
Yeah, I mean, I think Michael Gambon is still good though, and it's interesting that he has kind of a different look than Richard Harris's Dumbledore. He's got the sort of grey robe and all that, which is interesting. I mean, I like the whole stuff.
Really different. Like it's like Harris had such like red and burgundy colors. In this, like Michael Gambon it's all grey. Like it changed so much. It's like a different character.
Instead of Gandalf the Grey, it's Dumbledore the Grey.
Yeah. Honest trailers called him Gandalf the Gay. Because Dumbledore is gay, so it's pretty appropriate.
Yeah, but anyway, I mean the film's is still entertaining. Like I like the scenes with Buckbeak and Harry. Like that's a great scene where Harry goes on Buckbeak and he's flying. That's a great moment in the film and the whole series. It's interesting that they've kind of redesigned the school uniforms in this one. They've got the hoods on them, which is interesting. I mean, I think the pacing of the movie, like I said, is pretty good. I mean, it's a bit of a shame that Hagrid doesn't get as much to do in this film than the first two, but still, Robbie Coltrane is great as Hagrid. And I like the whole stuff with the time turners, the way we see Hermione as the time turner.
They turned Doctor Who on us.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that when I was watching it. Yeah, I mean, I mean, although we'll get to the tent that's bigger on the inside than the out in the next one. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's interesting they kind of added the time turner things, a little bit of a sci-fi element in it, but it doesn't really bother me that much. I mean,
It's a magical world.
yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see the characters in this. Like, they're a little bit more grown up here. Like, because this is 2 years after the second film came out, so they're about 14 in this, I think, or 15 maybe. I don't know, but
well, the film is set a year afterwards, so they'll be 13. Well, the characters will be anyway, but
yeah. But I think they were 14 or something. I don't know, but maybe 13. But anyway,
around that.
yeah. No, I mean, I think the film is good. Like, in the scene where Buckbeak's, killed, and we see that they go back in time to save Buckbeak. That was a good scene. And the way they can't like see themselves in the past, or else it'll cause like some kind of problem. That was good. I mean, one thing I will say about Prisoner of Azkaban and sort of the films that go on in the series is we do see Harry and Hermione and Ron a lot more in their civilian clothes, like their hoodies and stuff, which, isn't bad, but I much prefer them in their school uniform in the first two. I mean, in this film and as the series go on, we see them a lot more in their civilian outfits, like the hoodies and the trousers and stuff, and I kind of prefer them in their school uniform, but it doesn't damage the movie in any way. I mean, I think the rest of the cast is great. Like Gary Oldman is Sirius Black; he's very good in the way he's kind of innocent and he's sort of running away from Azkaban, and I like the fact that he kind of has a little bit of a, I guess you could say, a little bit of a fatherly relationship with Harry. Like, he wants to look after Harry and he wants Harry to stay with him.
His godfather,
Yeah, yeah. And you kind of wish Harry, that Sirius Black was just, let free, like they, cleared him of his sentence, because, if I was Harry, I'd rather want to stay with Sirius Black than the Dursleys, because they just treat him like shit. But nonetheless, that's good. I like the new Defense Against the Dark Art teacher in this film. I forget his name.
Lupin.
Oh yeah, Lupin. Yeah, he's good, and I like the scenes with him and Harry. And he's probably the best Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher that Harry's had. But unfortunately, we find out why he can't be the teacher later on. We find out why. It's also interesting in this film as well, where we find out the Scabbers Ron's rat is actually
also Lupin was Harry's dad's best friend, so that's kind of ironic.
Yeah, but it's interesting to see that in this film, Scabbers, Harry's Ron's pet rat is basically it's actually a person. So that was interesting. We find out that he kind of stitched up Sirius Black, whatever.
Yeah.
He's good. The scene is probably my favorite scene in the film, where we see Lupin turn into the werewolf. That was a great moment.
That's scary.
Yeah, and we see, of course, Sirius Black was killed. We see they've used the time turners to go back and save him, which is interesting. But I mean, that whole scene is done really well. I like the ending of the film, near the end of the film, where they're beside the river, I think it is, and you've got all those creatures that are swarming them.
The Dementors.
Yeah, the Dementors. Yeah. That was a really good scene. And I liked the fact that they managed to save Sirius Black at the end.
Oh yeah, Jack. Sorry to interrupt. The train scene at the beginning is really creepy.
Oh yeah, yeah. I agree with you. That was a creepy scene. And I did like the ending of the film as well, where we see, basically everything's kind of resolved at the end, and yeah, things are really. I mean, overall, I think Prisoner of Azkaban's a really good film. One thing I will say, though, I agree with Alan's review of Prisoner of Azkaban. I do think the film is a little bit too, I guess you could say, a bit too dark, a little bit grey at some points. It's not as colourful as the first two.
The lighting.
The photography on this movie,
yeah,
very grey looking.
It's very. Sorry.
For practically the whole movie.
Yeah.
Gray.
That's true. Yeah. So I agree with Fallon there. But nonetheless, I still think it's a good film, and I'm probably gonna. I mean, my only complaints really would be that maybe there could be a little bit more humor. And the story isn't the most interesting or the Harry Potter films, but it's still a pretty good damn film.
Oh
But
yeah,
it's not.
Jack, what do you think of the Quidditch match?
Um, that was stupid. The Quidditch match in the rain. That was a really dumb scene. I mean, why would you have a Quidditch match in the middle of thunder and lightning rainstorm? I don't understand that. That was stupid. Yeah, do you want to get Harry, shocked with a lightning bolt? I mean, he's already got a lightning bolt
It's
scar.
funny you say that because there is a student that does get fucking struck by lightning and falls down. And Harry nearly gets hit by them. It's just so dangerous.
Maybe they should have played that AC/DC song when he got struck. You've been thunderstruck.
Thunder. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
Riders on the storm by the Doors.
Yeah, the Doors. Yeah, yeah. Maybe they should have shown the person in the Doors who brought that game up. But anyway.
Also, Jack, what do you think of the music as well this time?
Oh yeah, the music by John Williams. I kind of agree with you, Ollie. I think it's probably John Williams' weakest Harry Potter score. I mean, it's not bad, but I think he could have done a little bit better. And it's kind of a shame that he didn't continue on with the series. But I suppose when Goblet of Fire came out, it was Semi Revenge of the Sith came out, so he couldn't do the soundtrack for that. But for his final score, he does a decent job. It's not terrible.
I think the best track he does is for the Buckbeak flight scene. When Harry's flying Buckbeak, that music is great. The rest of it's kind of weird and quirky.
Yeah, I forgot to mention the music for the first two as well by John Williams. I love the main Harry Potter theme, and I also love some of the other theme, like the dun 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 in the first two. That was great. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's a good film. Not one of my favorite Harry Potter films, but it's still a good film. I mean, I agree with Alan. There isn't any bad Harry Potter films in the series, but for me, there are definitely better ones in there, and the story isn't the most interesting out of all the Harry Potters, but it's still a good film. So I'm probably going to close off by giving it a 8 out of 10.
Oh, okay. We move on to Harry. Thomas.
Well, The Prisoner of Azkaban. It's the as you said, it's the end of an era for the Chris Columbus Harry Potter movies and the beginning of another era for this franchise. This movie was such a change in direction for the franchise in general, and Prisoner of Azkaban, it is a freaking awesome Harry Potter movie, and I can see why some was a favorite as their favorite in the franchise. The general consensus calls this one the best, but I personally disagree. I think that's an overpraise. But yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I still
your favorite is considered the worst in the series, but yeah.
Exactly. My favorite, nobody agrees with me on, but yeah, exactly. So yeah,
sorry, Harry, no offense, but
oh, that's okay. Yeah, but everybody has their favorite and least favorites in this franchise, but there's not a single bad one. I agree, but yeah, I do still have, as much as I love Prisoner of Azkaban, I do think it is certainly an even better movie than the first two. I still have my nitpicks with it. Like, I think the opening scene, for one thing, this is controversial, but I think this is the weakest Harry Potter opening scene where we see Harry casting Lumos Maxima. I'm like, how the fuck did the Ministry, the Trace, not pick up on that? He's using magic outside of school like that, and with him casting Lumos Maxima under his bed, it looks like he's jerking off to a Wizarding World Pornhub or something. Yeah,
they did an edit of that. They did an edit of that Harry Potter YouTube poop where he's looking at a Hustler magazine underneath.
Oh, yeah. I know, right?
Oh god.
He likes to wave that wand about, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, fun. I mean, the spell. The light from the spell is white, so.
Oh yeah.
Yo ho ho! It's magic. you know.
No, I can see why they YouTube with that. It was hilarious, yeah, and also I do think Voldemort could have been included in this movie somehow because Voldemort was kind of missed for me, but it's not but it's a
I kind
minor.
of disagree, Harry. I mean, it's nice to have a break from Voldemort for one film, but fair enough.
Oh yeah, fair enough.
I mean,
Yeah,
I think this film gets away with not having Voldemort because it focuses on things that actually don't involve him. So I guess she felt there was no need for Voldemort in this one.
Oh yeah, fair enough. I can see why. I mean, I guess it is good to see a change. It is good to focus on other things, but then the first act it does get better after that opening scene. We see Aunt Marge, Vernon's sister. She comes in and she cruelly insults Harry's parents, and Harry just he makes his most badass stand to the Dursleys ever when he inflates Aunt Marge and she flies away, and then he straight up leaves the house and he goes the night bus to the leaky cauldron, and then and it's hilarious. We get some banter with Hermione and Ron about Crookshanks chasing Scabbers, but it turns out Crookshanks, she's the true hero of this movie. She saw what we didn't see, that Scabbers was in fact Peter Pettigrew this
By the way,
entire time.
Crookshanks, I found this out only recently, is actually a he.
Crookshanks was a boy.
Yeah.
So soft, my mistake.
No, honestly, I didn't realize until a few years ago. So don't worry.
Oh yeah, that's okay. And Alfonso Cuaron to me, even though Chris Columbus intended to stay with the franchise till the end, he didn't want the schedules for Prisoner of Azkaban at the time were exhausting, and he needed to take time off to direct it, but he didn't want to take any time off because he feared the actors would become too old and overage for their roles.
He didn't want to release the movie in 2003.
Well, yeah, exactly. So he decided there's no way I can do this. So he quit, and Alfonso Cuarón stepped in, I love how Alfonso Cuarón it was the right decision to make this movie edgier than the first two and have a far more gloomy color palette. But this movie is visually one of the most beautiful looking in the entire franchise for me. I mean, the first two Harry Potter movies have the CGI hasn't aged well, but this movie, it's 15 years old now, and it still looks as beautiful back then as it did 15 years ago in 2004. And also Alfonso Cuarón, he did have he had a good relationship with the three leads. He asked Dan, Rupert, and Emma to write an essay about their time working on the movies, and Ron and Rupert didn't even bother to write his essay because he was like, well, that's not the sort of thing Ron would do, and Alfonso was so impressed by how well they knew their characters, and and I do think
or maybe Rupert Grint just didn't want to bother with writing an essay.
Well, yeah, I can't say I blame him, and also, the three leads, they are certainly better in this movie. I mean, I personally love that they wear more of their hoodies and jeans than their Hogwarts uniform. It goes to show how that they are growing up here at first scene, and they are better at more dramatic acting for me than comedy acting. I love how much darker a character Harry is here. He's not afraid to stand up for himself this time, and he's learning more about his past with what happened to his parents and Sirius Black and Peter Pettigrew. That entire mystery side to this movie, it was awesome, and Michael Gambon as Dumbledore. I personally like Michael Gambon just slightly better than Richard Harris.
Get on!
Yeah.
Blasphemy!
Yeah, sorry. Unpopular opinion, but to me, Richard Harris said, sure.
Sorry,
sure
Harry, I'm gonna have to perform a spell on you. Obliviate!
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm sure my Richard Harris fans will want to obliviate me for that. But to me, while Richard Harris was, don't get me wrong, Richard Harris was wonderful. But to me, Michael Gambon, he's more of an active Dumbledore. He's more of a badass Dumbledore, which is what I love. And I know, and even the Dementors, they are one they are one of the additions that makes this movie darker than the first two, especially the Dementor on the train scene. That scene lets you know, okay, kids, shit is going to go down in this franchise from now
Are
on.
you ready, kids?
Are you ready, kids? Aye, Captain. Yeah.
I can hear you!
Aye, Captain, yeah. And then, yeah, I'm very fond of Remus Lupin, played by David Thewlis, who was Ares in Wonder Woman a few years ago. Would you agree that Remus Lupin is the best defense against the dark arts teacher?
Hell
Yeah.
fucking yes.
Yeah, he is terrific, and I love his friendship with Harry because he was closer to both Lily and James. He was one of the Marauders back at Hogwarts, and we even get to see a little more, just a tad more outside of Hogwarts, which is fresh. We get to see Hogsmeade, which is such a cozy town, and also and we also get Professor Trelawney, played by Emma Thompson.
You must look beyond.
She is amazing. Cast yourselves into the future. Yeah, yeah. She is hilarious, and Buckbeak, he's one of my favorite Harry Potter characters of all time, and the scene where Harry is riding Buckbeak, that's one of my favorite Harry Potter moments. Period. It is breathtaking, and we even get to see Malfoy get a bit of comeuppance in this movie. Finally, after being a dick for the first two, we get to see Buckbeak. He scratches his arm, and then even Hermione, she smacks him straight in the face, and she's like, "That felt good." I'm with you, Hermione. That was so satisfying, and the finale, that is the best part of this movie, where with the time turner and where it's revealed that J.K. Rowling, she's the best with plot twists. It turns out in the plot twist that Peter Pettigrew is the traitor who betrayed Harry's parents, not Sirius, and we get just shockingly dark moments, like when Lupin turns into the werewolf, and then the Dementor sequence on the frozen lake, and the it's an
Harry,
it's
sorry, I also throw in Snape has his best line in this movie. Turn to page 394.
Oh yeah, that is his most iconic line by far. Oh yeah, and it's awesome that Harry does it. Also, he stands up to Snape when when he's carrying the Marauders map, and he's like, and request he keep his abnormally large nose out of other people's business, and he even gets to Expelliarmus Snape's ass in the Shrieking Shack, which was great, and maybe this is John Williams' weakest score of the three he composed, but he was occupied with Revenge of the Sith at the time, so you can see why. But yeah, there's 15 years later, this is still yet another downright awesome Harry Potter movie, and it's still not my favorite of the franchise, controversially, but sure is a great one. So I'm going to rate Prisoner of Azkaban the first 10 out of 10 and 5 stars out of 5.
Woo! Excellent. Excellent, Harry. Thank you very much. So now we move on to Alan, and this is going to be slightly not as positive, I think.
Oh, I still like the movie. Like, don't get me wrong. I like all the Harry Potter movies, but some to varying degrees. Yeah, the third movie, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. I do like it very much, but when I rank the Harry Potter movies, this one is one of my least favorites. But that doesn't mean I don't like it.
It's funny because they say the third is usually the weakest.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are some Harry Potter fans who say they like Prisoner of Azkaban the best.
Oh, no, sorry. No, I mean, like, films, generally, like, in trilogies, like, they say, the third usually is the worst, etc. I mean, at the time, it, I think it got a mixed response, didn't it?
Somewhat mixed, although I know there are some film critics who have written in their reviews, they think Prisoner of Azkaban is the best film in the series, which I'm always very surprised by. With this particular movie. This one, here's the thing. This one was directed by Alfonso Cuaron, who has since proven himself to be an amazingly talented director. I mean, I was completely floored by the movie Gravity, which still stands my very favorite movies. I mean, that is an outstanding film.
Great
film. Mean, it's a great film.
Sandra Bullock lost in space.
What?
I was just saying Sandra Bullock lost in space in Gravity.
Kind of, but it works, and the fact that Cuaron gets the job done in 90 minutes, in a really tight 90 minutes.
Yeah, it didn't need to be any longer.
Yeah, it told the story it needed to tell in 90 minutes. There was no need to make it longer. Cuaron knew that, and I think he and Sandra Bullock and George Clooney to a lesser extent, I think they were all terrific in the film. It's an outstanding film, but it wasn't until Gravity came around that I truly knew how superbly talented Cuaron was. He had done, this has to be told, he did a few films before Prisoner of Azkaban. In fact, a couple of them were children's films. He did a film adaptation of Great Expectations, and then he did a film called A Little Princess.
That's actually quite a good film. I quite like that.
Yeah, but then, this has to be mentioned. I can't talk about Cuaron without mentioning this. Then Alfonso Cuaron went into a completely different direction, and he wrote and directed this graphic Mexican sex comedy called Y Tu Mama Tambien, which, I mean, I don't have any of you seen that film?
No,
sorry.
The sex scenes in that movie are off the chart. I don't know how Cuaron got his actors to do them, but this is really graphic sex scenes. Although it was a very critically acclaimed film, but the fact that this is the guy that they chose to direct a Harry Potter movie. I mean, if you look at Y Tu Mama Tambien, I mean, the movie begins with, it's about these two horny teenage boys. Well, I think that they're both of age. They're like 18, I think. They're both of age, but teenage. Mm-hmm. These two horny boys who basically go on a road trip with this knockout gorgeous older woman who turns out to be just as horny as they are. And that movie, the movie begins with a scene of one of the boys having sex with his girlfriend. This is followed by a scene of the other boy having sex with his girlfriend. And then later on, they go on the road trip with this knockout gorgeous older woman. She has sex with one of the boys in a hotel room. This is followed by a scene of her having sex with the other boy in the car. And then the movie ends with her having sex with both boys in a threesome.
Oh, my God.
I mean, it's really, really graphic stuff.
Oh.
Like I said, I don't know how Cuaron got his actors to do them, but...
Did you get out the tissues, Alan? Joking.
You might want to. There's also... there's supposed to be there's a scene that's supposed to be pretty funny, and it is, but it's also pretty illogical, where the two boys are laying next to each other, masturbating by a swimming pool.
Oh my God!
I just don't.
No.
Like I said, it's really graphic stuff, and it wasn't too long after this movie came out, as critically acclaimed as it actually was. I mean, they announced Alfonso Cuarón as the director of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, and I'm thinking to myself, they hired this guy, the guy who did Y Tu Mama Tambien. They hired this guy to direct a Harry Potter movie? Are you shitting me? I couldn't believe it. And by the way, it has to be said, there's a little wink and a nod to Y Tu Mama Tambien in Prisoner of Azkaban. It's the moment where Harry, Ron, and Hermione are watching the what's the name of the flying creature in Prisoner of Azkaban?
Buckbeak.
Buckbeak, where we see him from a distance getting beheaded, even though Harry and friends turn it all around and they save Buckbeak's life using wibbly wobbly, timey wimey magic. But there's that opening. There's that scene where they see him from a distance being beheaded, and Ron, Harry, and Hermione, they all hug each other, with I think Hermione in the middle and the two boys on either side of her, and they're all hugging each other, the three of them. And that's a little wink and a nod to the three characters in E2 and having a threesome. And you wouldn't know that if I didn't tell you, but that's what that is. That's a little Cuaron's little wink and a nod to E2 Mama Tambien when you see the kids hugging each other as a threesome. So just thought I'd let you know. So anyway, I was pretty shocked that they announced Cuaron would be directing the third Harry Potter movie, but I'm guessing it's on the basis of the children's films that he did before he did his sex comedy, A Little Princess and Great.
Thank God he didn't get Hermione, Harry, and Ron to have a threesome.
Yeah. Well, that's as close as it gets when you see the three of them hugging each other. That's as close as it gets. But yeah, I was pretty shocked that they hired him to do it. But okay, they hired him to do it. And the resulting film
with the sexy,
the resulting film it's a good Harry Potter movie, but for many years it was my least favorite of all the Harry Potter films until Deathly Hallows Part 1 came around. So Prisoner of Azkaban moved up a notch in my affections. Although when I rank all of the Harry Potter movies together, I still rank it towards the bottom. Which doesn't mean that it's bad, but it's just, I like the film very much, but I think there are quite a few other Harry Potter films in the series that are better, in my opinion, than Prisoner of Azkaban.
Second least favorite.
What's that? Yeah, second least favorite, in my opinion, Prisoner of Azkaban. For starters, this was the very first Harry Potter film without Richard Harris, who had just died, and so the filmmakers had no choice but to recast the role, and they brought in Michael Gambon as the new Dumbledore. And Michael Gambon, for me, he would become a very good Dumbledore. I definitely came to like him very much in the role. He's certainly a very good, very solid Dumbledore. But for me, it took him a couple of movies, to find his footing in the role and establish himself as Dumbledore. Because, first of all, his first time out as Dumbledore in Prisoner of Azkaban, I missed Richard Harris too much. I really, really missed Richard Harris. And I don't think Gambon was given that much to do in Prisoner of Azkaban. And as Ollie mentioned, I think he's not so much a fatherly figure to Harry and company in Prisoner of Azkaban as he's just another teacher. He just comes across as just another teacher.
I think even in the later films as well, like in the Goblet of Fire, there's a scene at the end when he talks to him, and you do just get the sense of, oh, he is just his head teacher, There isn't that same emotional connection.
Not quite the same, but it was definitely much better. Much better.
Yeah, it was the best they could do. Bless them.
Right. Exactly. I understand. They couldn't have Richard Harris anymore. They had to recast the role. But being this is the first one without Harris as Dumbledore, I definitely miss Richard Harris a lot. And I don't think Gambon was given that much to do anyway here in Prisoner of Azkaban. So, I thought he was okay his first time out of the gate, but it wouldn't be until the next film, Goblet of Fire, that I was finally sold on him as Dumbledore. He becomes a really good Dumbledore in the next film.
Alan, they could have, if they did these films now, they could have brought back Richard Harris's Dumbledore now, with CGI, like they did with Grand Moff Tarkin in Rogue One. But yeah, well,
they could have, but no, that wouldn't have worked. And the fact that they had 5 movies left to do, or something like that, 4 or 5 movies series. So recasting the role was the only option, and I understand that. What else could they do?
The part is so important that to get away with doing a CGI would be very difficult. You need somebody who can do a very good impersonation. It would, I agree with Alan on this one, but I see where Jack is coming from, because nowadays technology has improved, but back then it was like, well, what other choice do we have? We have to recast,
Exactly. But so for me, Gambon would become a really good Dumbledore, but it wouldn't be until the next movie, Goblet of Fire, which we'll talk about shortly.
And thankfully, he made it beyond 2 movies. He would see the series out.
Yeah. Yes, he would, which I'm grateful for. Like I said, in the end, he's a very good Dumbledore, but it would take a couple of films for me to really warm up to him. His first time out, he's fine, but I miss Richard Harris too much this time. Another thing about the movie, as we touched on a little bit earlier, I'm not particularly fond of the cinematography in Prisoner of Azkaban because everywhere you look, the movie is gray. It's like there's hardly any color. Even the scenes that do have color, I mean, all the skies are always overcast. They're playing the Quidditch game in a fucking ferocious rainstorm with lightning and thunder and high winds. Why would anybody play a game in such horrible weather like that? It's not like it's a little drizzle. I mean, this is a really ferocious storm they're playing it in. And yeah, I thought that didn't make any sense to me. And again, everything gray. Everywhere you look, the film is gray. So I'm not particularly fond of the
even Dumbledore's gray in this one with his robe.
Even his robe is gray. Yeah. It's the most colorless looking of all the Harry Potter movies, which very much surprises me. I mean, there's not that much color. I mean, the most colorful moment in the film that I can think of is the scene towards the beginning where it's at night and Harry has just stormed out of the house of his horrible foster family, and he's on the runaway double-decker bus, and the nightlight look, that has a little bit of color to it, but even that scene is has some darkness to it, but it's like the color of the film just isn't right to me. That's just something that I notice when I look at Prisoner of Azkaban. But it's still a very good Harry Potter movie. I mean, all the actors in it are still very good. Daniel Radcliffe as Harry, Rupert Grint as Ron, Emma Watson as Hermione. They're all growing up quite nicely, them and all the other kids in the cast growing up very nicely. All the adult actors, of course, are wonderful. Although, like I said, it's going to take me another movie to warm up to Michael Gambon as the new Dumbledore. But, of course, Alan Rickman as Snape, Maggie Smith, Robbie Coltrane, and all the rest, they're all top-notch, as always. I really enjoy David Thewlis as Professor Lupin, the new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, who eventually it's revealed that he's a werewolf. But he's very good, and I like his teacher-student relationship with Harry. I always like that scene where I guess he's teaching them the ridiculous spell, where they have the cupboard, and what comes out of the cupboard is each child's greatest fear, where they just have to say ridiculous and turn that fear into something silly looking, like the big spider that comes out and the child says ridiculous, and it's now wearing roller skates and slips and falls, and it is quite funny. It is quite effective. I do love the scene towards the beginning where Harry gets back at that horrible aunt and blows her up like a balloon with magic, and she floats away, which leads to Harry storming out of the house. And then, of course, the great scene where he's on the runaway double-decker bus that can squeeze and shrink, to get through small places, but none of the Muggles notice the double-decker bus.
Alan, what did you think of the joke where the bus slowed down for the old granny going across the road?
Yeah, that was very funny. That's one of my favorite scenes from the movie on the runaway double-decker bus. That's quite funny, and how Harry gets knocked around through the bus and how it can squeeze through thin places, and yet none of the Muggles notice it. Is quite funny. The flying creature again. What is its name?
Buckbee.
Buckbee. Yeah, Buckbee. Yeah. He's very good. I think CGI work on him is very good. So I think he's a wonderful creature to see in the movie. I also like that Emma Watson gets a lot to do in this movie, because this time around it's Ron who doesn't get as much screen time in this one. and this time Hermione and Harry go on an adventure where they use this magic. I guess that's a medallion or something like that can turn back time. And
the time turner, yeah.
The time turner, yes, and then they're trying to undo events that happened before, including the execution of Buckby, which they do manage to turn on, thankfully. So that's all very good. She gets a lot to do, and again, just watching all these young people grow up before your very eyes in these succeeding films is always a pleasure. So that's good. But she gets a lot to do, which I appreciate, and I'm sure she appreciated it too, Emma Watson. It has to be said, though, that one... let's see. Regarding the brand new people, okay, I mentioned David Thewlis. Emma Thompson, ex-wife of Kenneth Branagh, who appeared in the previous film. She appears here as I guess, Professor Trelawney, teacher at Hogwarts. She's very good. She's like this very bumbling, nervous teacher. You know, she's got the glasses and the frizzy hair, and she's teaching the kids about tea leaves. But there just seems to be something not quite right about her in the head, that she's always nervous or something like that. But Emma Thompson, she's a brilliant actress, as we all know. So it's nice to have her on board this time around. It has to be said, though. Of course, I have to mention Gary Oldman as Sirius Black. He's another wonderful addition to the cast. I heard at the time, Gary Oldman at the time, he was basically out of work. So he basically did this movie because he really, really needed the work. But wow, he turned out to be a wonderful addition to the cast as Sirius Black.
Yeah, and I think after this, he got a lot more work.
I think so.
He won the Oscar, I think, last year, the year before, for Darkest Stars, Winston Churchill. So well done.
Oh, yes. He was fantastic in that film.
Yes, he was. Oh, yeah, he's an outstanding actor. Yes, indeed. But, I guess he'd been out of work for a little while when the role of Sirius Black came his way, thank goodness. And it turns out he and Harry are related. And I love to see that relationship between them.
Well, I mean, not blood related, but yeah, he's his godfather. So
godfather, yes. And it turns out he turns into a dog, like a wolf. I guess a wolf. Not a werewolf, but I mean like a dog, a big dog,
like a wild dog. Yeah.
A wild dog. Yes.
Yeah. Called the Grim.
Yes. But he's quite good. So he's a great addition to the cast. It has to be said, though, Julie Christie as Madame Rosmerta, it's a total throwaway cameo. She's hardly in the movie. It's literally blink and you miss her. And when you do see her, I think it's in a scene where Harry is under his invisibility cloak, and so when Julie Christie actually does appear on screen, she's kind of blocked. She basically only appears in one or two scenes, and she hardly says anything. It's hardly an appearance at all. It's a throwaway cameo. I think she's basically wasted in this movie because that's the only moment that she appears in the film. She hardly does anything. And for such a wonderfully talented actress as Julie Christie, I mean, I don't even know why she even agreed to do it, just to say, "Oh, I appeared in a Harry Potter movie," but she doesn't do anything in this movie.
Who does she play? Sorry,
huh?
Julie Christie. Who does she play?
Again, Madame Rosmerta.
Oh, the one that owns the pub. Yeah.
Yeah, but like I said, she's barely in the movie. It's literally a blink and you miss her appearance.
It's a cameo. Yeah.
Yeah. She gets nothing to do in this movie, which is a damn shame. I mean, she's there, but she gets nothing to do. Oh well. But overall, I mean, it's still a very good Harry Potter movie overall. I mean, I still think the actual storyline is good, and Harry trying to solve a few more mysteries about his past and his destiny, I guess. And I do like the whole adventure he goes on with Hermione as they're trying to change back time and fix certain things from happening, and how they constantly they just manage to avoid meeting themselves in the past. They're having like these near misses with themselves.
Yeah, they don't cause a paradox.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, all of that I think is great fun. So and then when he does finally, when he does figure out, when Harry does figure out the certain things about his past that he needs to learn. It's a great moment. And when he and Hermione succeed in rescuing Sirius Black, they succeed in rescuing Buckby, and we get that big moment where Harry's flying off on the back of Buckby. That's certainly a great uplifting moment, I admit. So overall, I mean, I think Prisoner of Azkaban is very good, but as I say, it also helps that the movie is a little bit shorter than Chamber of Secrets. It's like 2 hours, 22 minutes, which feels just about right for a Harry Potter movie. So that's good. But again, I miss Richard Harris in the role of Dumbledore, even though Michael Gambon tries, but it'll take the next movie before I warm up to him. To me, it's the most colorless looking of all the movies because of all the gray that you see everywhere. And again, playing Quidditch in a rainstorm makes no sense to me. So I like the film, but it's just not one of my very favorites. But this is still very good, very, very good, very, very solid entertainment. And still, very much a worthy addition. And I will say, Alfonso Cuaron, even though I was very surprised they chose him to do it after he had done Y Tu Mama Tambien, for goodness sake, his direction is very good. And I do give him his credit that when he did Gravity, I was completely blown away by what he did there. So he is a very talented director. But I was very surprised that they picked him to direct this. But okay, he did a good job directing. I just wish his cinematographer had added a little bit more color to the movie. That would have been appreciated. But yeah, he does a good job.
Do you think they should do a special edition where they make it more colorful?
I would definitely welcome that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it would all have to be fixed in post-production, but I'm sure they can make a few visual adjustments.
Yeah, I would be totally supportive of that. I would welcome that, definitely. So there you go. That's my take on Prisoner of Azkaban. So I mean, I like the film, but it's just not one of my very favorites. Still very good in its own right. So I will give Prisoner of Azkaban a solid 8 out of 10.
Ooh.
Excellent. Thank you, Alan. Thank you for that interesting opinion, and thanks for recommending us that sex movie.
Yeah. If you watch it, by all means, let me know what you think. I'd be very curious.
Oh yeah, if I watch it, I'd do a review, maybe even a sketch. But
one review only.
Be careful with that sketch.
Yeah, but I need 2 other people to appear in the sketch.
Yeah. Be careful.
Yeah. Okay. Where are we? Oh yeah, the Prisoner of Azkaban. Sorry, getting sidetracked. The Prisoner of Azkaban. Oh fucking hell. The Prisoner of Azkaban.
Y Tu Mama Tambien.
No, stop it! You make me laugh. The Prisoner of Azkaban. Okay, now I'll do this. I like this one. I think I'm with Jack in that it's not quite up there with the first two, but I think this is a very good film. It's another really good addition to the series. It's a very different film. It's got a slightly more weird sense about it. Like, it's kind of weird and quirky. Like, the direction by Alfonso Cuarón is a bit weird, like in a good way. Like the scenes like with the night bus, and also the singing choir is all really interesting and slightly bizarre. It doesn't have the light and fluffy, airy fairiness of the first two. It's a lot darker. It's a lot more mature. It's not the darkest of the series, God no, but it is edging the story in a darker direction. I mean, the kids are kind of teenagers now. That's just kind of where they are, and Harry's dealing with a lot more adolescence. I mean, he's coming into his teenage years, but he's struggling to deal with the events of his past, like the revelations about his parents are coming into play, like the scene in the Shrieking Shack where he discovers that it was actually Pettigrew that betrayed his parents and not Sirius Black. That's quite a big thing for him to deal with. So he's having to deal with quite a lot yet again. You know, every year in Hogwarts, there's something that he has to deal with. This story...
Yeah, I'm surprised the school isn't shut down by now, the amount of stuff that's happened to Harry.
God, yeah, that's true. I like the story, and I like the. I mean, it is a little bit more complicated than the first two in terms of the. It's more of a character arc, I suppose, with all of the revelations. So younger viewers may struggle a little bit with it, but I don't think it's that bad. I mean, it's certainly intriguing, and I think this is a much more personal film. Like the scenes with Harry and Lupin are great, and I like the relationship he has with him. He's almost like it's almost like his uncle, really. I mean, he's more than a teacher, because he knew Harry's dad. He was his dad's best friend, so there's a little bit more of an emotional connection there. And there's that great scene on the bridge when they talk about the boggart scene, which none of you have mentioned, actually, the scene with the boggart, where they all have to, they look at what they fear the most, they cast a spell ridiculous, and it turns it into something funny, which actually is sort of redone in...
Alan did mention it. I mentioned it.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. Sorry, I probably missed that. But yeah, no, which is a great scene. Very, very amusing. Probably the funniest scene in the film. I mean, it does have... The film does have some charm, but it's just not as charming as the first two. So I think, yeah, David Thewlis is very good, and obviously the Lupin scene when he turns into a werewolf is very scary. This is a bit scarier than the first two. I wonder how Chris Columbus would have directed this film, because he certainly would have made a film like this. I think the pacing is a lot better. It's shorter, which is a help. I think it's 2 hours 20 minutes, which I think is the right length after the second film, which was too damn long for its own good. This one is paced a lot better. I like the character moments. I mean, I think Hermione gets more to do. I love the scene when she punches Malfoy. That's hilarious. But on the flip side, Ron gets less to do because in the second film.
Yeah, this finale is the reverse of the finale of Chamber of Secrets, where Ron is taken out and Hermione is the front and center.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. And that sequence with the time turner is really interesting. Yeah, they go sort of Doctor Who on us, but I think it's interesting. I think it's cool. I like the
Quick, Hermione, reverse a plow to the time turner.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like it. I think Gary Oldman as Sirius Black is great. I mean, in the scenes he's in, he gets quite a bit to do. And I like that he's got a special relationship with Harry, being his godfather, and sort of getting to know him, really. I mean, he hasn't really had a chance to meet him because he's been stuck in prison for the last 12 years. I think the Dementors are a really creepy addition to the film. I love that scene on the train where all the lights go out, everything turns to ice, and then it slowly opens the door with its hand and then moves it and it tries to suck out people's souls. I mean, that's a really, really freaky concept. And I like the moment when Harry is trying to learn how to use Expecto Patronum, which is the spell that defeats them. There's that moment, obviously, when Harry goes back in time and he sees himself and Sirius, and then he casts the Patronus and blasts all the Dementors away. I mean, that is epic. I love the Buckbeak scene. Buckbeak is great. I think the CGI on Buckbeak is really held up. I love the scene when Harry flies Buckbeak across the school. It's just beautiful. Really breathtaking visuals, and the music that goes with it is fantastic. Da, 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 da. And Harry's like it's a moment when Harry is free, you know. It's like when he goes, woo! You know, he's on the water, and it's just a brilliant moment, really.
Jack, I'm flying!
Yeah, yeah. One of my favorite moments of the series, actually. I mean, I don't think I could quite agree about Hagrid. I think he gets a little bit to do. Maybe he could have had a little more, but I think his story was interesting. How, you know, Buckbeak was going to be executed, and he was trying to, you know, and he was becoming a teacher as well, and Hagrid sort of took on a bit more responsibility. They kind of given Hagrid a little bit of a different role in this film, even if it's.
I have to say, Malfoy is a prick for reporting Buckbeak, so Hagrid, because he's the one who sends Buckbeak to his death.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, no, I agree, and it's very sad, actually. Although obviously they go back in time and they manage to save him before he gets executed.
Thank God.
Good. Of course, the elephant in the room is Michael Gambon. I haven't addressed him yet. It's very sad to see Richard Harris go, but Michael Gambon does what he can. I think in this film, he's good, and for the scenes he's in, I like him. But yeah, I agree with Alan. It will take another film before I fully sort of settle into Gambon. So I think The Goblet of Fire is where Michael Gambon really cements himself as the new Dumbledore.
I agree.
Yeah, I think I like him. Man. There's that moment where Harry and Hermione come back and they say, "Oh, we did it. He's free." And he's like, "Did what? Good night." I like that. That was quite good. I mean, this film does. I think the cinematography is slightly grayer. It does. Some of the lighting is a little too dark, and I agree. Like, there's so much overcast weather in this. Like, there's not much sunlight in this film. I mean, when there is sunlight, there's not much of it. So it's a kind of a bleak-looking movie. It's kind of weird in that way. And I agree. Why have the Quidditch match in the thundering rain? That is just kind of dumb. I mean,
they're asking for these kids to get killed.
Yeah.
Really?
The Hogwarts not care about health and safety.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's a cool scene, but I'm just thinking to myself, why are they even playing this game in the rain? I mean, the Dementors are around. Why? What? Why are you doing this? Like,
it looks cool, but it just doesn't make any sense, you know?
Yeah. I mean, if that were my school, and we had a thundering rain, they would cancel the damn sport. I know we couldn't do Quidditch, but it's the same principle.
You might be going up to Dumbledore, you fucking prick, put my kid's life at risk.
Probably got a load of hate mail. I mean, there's that student that gets struck by lightning and gets thrown down onto the ground, nearly hits Harry. I just don't get it. I don't get it. It's probably the weakest Quidditch scene of the whole series. It's why are they doing it? The snow in the Half-Blood Prince, that makes more sense. But anyway, I won't dwell on that. I think the music score is good by John Williams. There are some nice themes. Probably not as good as the first two scores, but it's good. I mean, there are some nice tracks, and there are others which are just kind of weird. He kind of like, I guess that was the direction from Alfonso Cuarón. The opening of the film, I disagree with you, Harry. I'm sorry. I think it's great.
That's awesome. Yeah,
I understand your point about him using magic. Yeah, I don't know why he was, how he got away with using it. I guess nobody saw him. He kind of gets away with it.
Speaking about Alan saying about everything in this film being grey, even the logo's grey in this one. It's not gold anymore.
Yeah, I don't mind that though. I think because that reflects the tone of the movie, that it is getting darker, and the logo would stay grey until the end. I think it's fine. I think it works. But I understand, if you have a problem with it. But the Aunt Marge scene is hilarious. The way she just blows up into a balloon and floats away. that was
You could just imagine like circus music playing when it happens, like
yeah, I suppose so. And also it was funny when her clothes were inflating and then the buttons ping off and hit Dudley in the face, which is quite funny.
Thank God she didn't end up naked. Could you imagine that, like a naked balloon flying in the air?
Yeah. And then Vernon goes up and goes, Marge! And he's like, I've got you. He's like, don't you dare! Sorry. This is really funny. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot darker. It's very different to the first film and the second film. It's shorter. It's more concise. I like the way Alfonso Cuarón deals with the characters and the drama. I think he's very good at that. The magic is there. There is a lot of magical scenes here. I like Professor Trelawney. She's good, and there's that scene, she's like the fortune teller, I suppose. And there's also worthy to know, Hermione's got an interesting story because she's stressed. She's taken on all these subjects, and she's going back in time to get to her lessons and everything. And
I just have to say, Hermione, for God's sake, stop being such a bookworm, and maybe that's why you wouldn't be stressed.
Yeah, and there's that great scene with Snape when he covers their lesson and turn to page 394. That's really good. And then he actually has a go at Hermione, and he's like, "Do you take pride in being an insufferable know-it-all?" Malfoy's good in this film. I mean, he kind of gets less to do, but he's still good in the movie. I like him. What else is there to say? Oh yeah, the Marauders map. Interesting how we learn about the map in this film. There's that scene when Fred and George actually give the map to Harry, which is interesting. All of the stuff with the Shrieking Shack is very intense. I mean, there's that great action scene where Harry and Hermione have to find Ron and they have to fight the tree, the Whomping Willow. Although weirdly, the tree looks like it's moved, or is it another tree? Because I swear the tree was in the castle grounds in the second film.
Yeah, the look of Hogwarts has certainly changed in this movie. Like the Whomping Willow's in a different place, and Hagrid's house even has a hill, and we even have the covered bridge for the first time.
Yeah, exactly. It changed. I always found that weird with the Prisoner of Azkaban. But I really like the film overall, and I think that it moves along well, and I love the ending of the film when Harry gets his new broom. In the book, that actually comes halfway through the book when Harry gets the broom from Sirius, but it's more of a like, what? Who sent this? You know what? So I like the fact that they changed that and put that at the end of the film. I think it works better because Harry knows Sirius, and Sirius, he decides to treat Harry, as a nice gesture of goodwill, and then Harry flies the broom. I think that's just a nice way to end the film. It's not the best of the series. I think the cinematography could be a little bit brighter. It's very great. I do like Alfonso Cuarón's direction, but I don't think he works with kids as well as Columbus. But I think the three leads do a great job, especially in the Shrieking Shack scenes. And I think Timothy Spall as Peter Pettigrew, or Wormtail as they call him, he's quite good. He's this kind of pathetic weasel, or rat in this case. That was a very weird twist, finding out that he was Ron's rat the whole time. Very convenient. But overall, also, yeah, another person to mention. I don't know if you guys did mention her, Dawn French as the fat lady.
Yes.
The portrait. Yeah.
Love Dawn French.
Yeah, who sings? She's when they're like trying to get in the common room. And they're like Fortuna Major. And she goes just singing at the top of her voice, and then she just breaks the glass and goes, "Oh, it's amazing! The top of my voice." That's cool. So there are some funny scenes in this film, even if they're weird. I mean, like the scene in the common room when Harry and his friends are like eating the sweets, and then they doing different like noises and voices. Like, I mean, it comes out of nowhere, but it's it's still quite amusing. So yeah, this film is more weird, it's more quirky, but it still has the dramatic heart of the story. It does have humor. I think it's a great movie. But I do prefer the first two, so I'm gonna score this one a 9 out of 10. But I still really like it. So yeah, and that was the only film that Alfonso Cuarón would direct in the series. He would then move on and do something else. So yeah, we now go on to the fourth movie and the last film we're going to talk about in this half of the reflection, The Goblet of Fire, which came out a year later in 2004. Well, a year and a half later, and directed by Mike Newell. And that was the only film he would direct. So I'm going to hand the microphone to Jack and let him talk about The Goblet of Fire.
Okay, well, The Goblet of Fire. This is a very interesting Harry Potter film because this is the first one that I saw in the cinema. I remember seeing it with my dad and my brother back in 2005. The Goblet of Fire, no, I've had a weird sort of relationship with this film because the first time I saw it as a kid, I was kind of a bit disappointed by it. I mean, when I first saw this as a kid, I was very used to the tone of the first two Harry Potter films. I mean, I had seen Prisoner of Azkaban, which was darker, but for me, Goblet of Fire, just when I was a kid, I don't know, I just think I was kind of let down by it because this is a lot darker than the first two films, and it has a lot of different stuff going on, like Harry growing up and they're older, and also this film, it has this trials and stuff, and I think that just kind of didn't interest me as much. And Voldemort comes back, but there's not really a huge final battle between Voldemort and Harry. So when I first saw this film as a kid, I was kind of disappointed by it. But I rewatched it recently with Ollie for we did an audio commentary on it, and I'll have to say my opinion on this one has changed quite a lot. I think Goblet of Fire, yeah, I think Goblet of Fire is a really good Harry Potter film. I mean, definitely a lot better than I remembered it to be. I mean, I think the direction here by Mike Newell is very good. I mean, the film starts off, well, basically cutting right to the chase. There's no scene with the Dursleys. But I mean, I think the film, the story of this one is quite interesting. How we see that Voldemort is slowly coming back in this film. Like we see throughout the film that he's this, that his minions are trying to bring him back to life, which is great. I mean, I think that the cast here does a great job. Daniel Radcliffe is Harry Potter. He's brilliant as always. Hermione, played by Emma Watson, and Rupert Grint and all that as Ron. They all do a very good job here. And it's interesting to see that they have grown up quite a bit in this film. I mean, they're about 15, I think, in this film, 14, 15. And, we definitely see that they're teenagers now. They're kind of, they start to get interested in girls and stuff like that. And we see that they're more, kind of stroppy, like, because of the hormones and stuff like that. Like, we see that Harry and Ron actually sort of have a falling out in this film. Ron thinks Harry's kind of a glory seeker. And we also, what's interesting as well is that their haircuts are longer. We see that Harry and Ron, their hair's
the Goblet of Fire, the year of long hair.
Yeah, it's funny because the boys in this film, they have longer hair, but Emma Watson as Hermione and some of the other characters have shorter hair, the girls, so that's kind of interesting. No, I mean, I think the characters all here are all really good. I mean, I really like Brendan Gleeson as Mad Eye Moody. He's very good. I mean, of course, sorry, when I said Domhnall Gleeson, he's of course his son who's in Star Wars now. But you've also got David Tennant in this film, which is really interesting. This is before he did. Yes. Before he did Doctor Who, I could just imagine.
Yeah, literally just before he did Doctor Who.
Yeah. I can imagine him getting out the screwdriver and saying "Allons-y" in the film.
Father.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I think the film is quite entertaining. There's some interesting scenes. I mean, speaking of Doctor Who, there's that scene at the beginning where they go into the tent, which is bigger on the inside than the out. I mean, I agree with Alan. If that isn't a reference to Doctor Who, then I don't know why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Precisely.
Yeah. I think J.K. Rowling was sort of tipping her hat to Doctor Who there in that scene. I mean, the beginning is quite dark. The whole scene where they're at the they're at the Quidditch match, and fortunately, we don't really get to see much of the Quidditch match. So it's interesting to see
any of it.
Well, any of it, yeah. But I mean, it's interesting to see that the Quidditch match is a lot different than the first two. Like, you've got these big screens within the stadium and stuff. I mean, it's nice to see Lucius Malfoy return in this film. I mean, I don't think he was in The Prisoner of Azkaban.
No, he wasn't actually. But I mean, he's in this movie, but only in brief.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a huge part of it, but we still see that he's working for Voldemort, which is interesting. I mean, the film, I think it's paced pretty well. I mean, it's nearly the same length as Chamber of Secrets, but the pacing is still pretty good. I mean, I like the trials in this film, the Triwizard thing that's going on. I mean, although I do agree with Ollie, I don't really understand, like, these trials are very dangerous. I don't know why they're letting the kids participate in this, but I mean, there you go. I mean, health and safety isn't really a thing at Hogwarts.
Yeah. That place would be still open even if it fucking, crumbled to the ground. Oh wait, it does in the Deathly Hallows.
Yeah. Oh well, spoiler alert. Well,
everyone's seen it now.
Yeah. Well, most of us have. Yeah. Well, No, I mean I think the film is really good, although it kind of has sort of the same thing that Prisoner of Azkaban does, that sort of dark in terms of its photography. But this time on doesn't really bother me that much because
Yeah. I actually think there's actually better cinematography this time. There's more. There are some like wide shots and some shots. There's more light in this film than Prisoner of Azkaban.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. No, I mean the film I think is very good. Although some people I know complain about Goblet of Fire and some of the other Harry Potter films later on because they did cut some things out of the book. But I can understand why, because these are films and you can't include every single detail of the books in the films. But nonetheless, I still think the film is entertaining. There's some really good scenes in this. Like I like the scene where they're going to the ball, like where Harry and all, and Harry basically has a crush on this girl in the film.
Cho.
Yeah, Cho. Yeah, this Chinese girl, and he sort of has a crush on her.
Well, she's actually Scottish, but yeah, I guess she does look kind of Oriental, though, doesn't she?
Yeah. Well, no, I think she's Scottish, but she's Chinese parents or whatever. But yeah,
what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think the scene in the ball is really good, like where they're all dancing, and we see Ron basically, he's jealous that Hermione's falling for this other guy, and she's saying like, oh, he's no good and all that, which is kind of interesting. And we do see there's a lot of fights in this film. Like this is the film really where they test their relationship between the three, like where Ron falls out with Harry, and then
Hermione.
Ron falls out with Harry, and then Hermione kind of gets mixed up in all of it, and Harry, she basically says to Harry, I'm not your messenger, basically.
I'm not an owl.
Yeah, and that was a good scene. I like the scene with the with Sirius Black in the fireplace. That was well done.
Oh yeah,
that was a good moment, and I do think Mad-Eye Moody is just a great character. I mean, he's quite funny. Like that scene, is it in class, like where like one of the students pisses him off, and he like no, it's the scene outside where he's with Malfoy, and he turns Malfoy into a rat or something like that.
Oh, yeah, like a ferret. Yeah,
a ferret. Yeah,
he goes down Crab's trousers and then Goyles to stick his hand down his trousers.
that was a great scene, and I have to say, Malfoy had it coming. Do you know what I mean? He definitely had it coming. That was a funny moment. I mean, Michael Gambon as Dumbledore. I agree. This is sort of the film where he cements himself. Although there is that one scene where it's a bit out of character, where he shouts at I think it's Harry or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he says, "Oh, did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire?" Or in the book, he actually says it calmly.
Yeah, exactly. That was a bit of an out of character moment, but nonetheless, he's still good as Dumbledore. Even though I prefer Richard Harris, but Michael Gambon is still very good as Dumbledore, and this is sort of the film where he cements himself in the role. I mean, the trials themselves, I think, are really good. Like the trial where Harry has to fight the dragon. That was a good scene, and I like the scene as well, where Harry is, he has to go underwater. Basically, he takes this potion or whatever it is, and
the gillyweed.
Yeah, and he turns into this sort of like he gets fins or whatever, and he sort of turns sort of a little bit into this aquatic creature in some ways, and then he has to rescue Hermione and Ron and all that. Although saying that, I mean, that is quite a. I mean, I don't understand why they would do that. Put Hermione and Ron underwater. I mean, what happens if they fail? I mean, Hermione and Ron could drown. But I mean,
well, that's how much they test them. That is a bit of a health and safety concern, but yeah, Hogwarts don't give a shit, I suppose.
Yes, they really don't. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like the trial afterwards, like where he's in the maze and they have to go through this maze that's ever changing. That's really great. The scenes with Voldemort, I think, are great in this. This is the first film with Ralph Fiennes as Voldemort. Who of course plays M now in the Bond films. But I mean, he's great here as as Voldemort. It's probably his signature role, probably the role he's remembered for the most at the moment. And he's great as Voldemort. He does a really good job. And I like the fact that they're sort of bringing him back throughout the whole film. They're trying to find a way of bringing him back. And I like the scene where Harry, he basically confronts Voldemort, and Voldemort, he and Harry briefly fight, and they get their wands at each other and attack each other. That was a good scene. It's interesting to see Lucius Malfoy still working for, Voldemort, because he's basically, well, I mean, in Chamber of Secrets, we find out that he's an elitist. He doesn't like, muggles and stuff. So that was good. And I do think the ending of the film is quite good, where we see Harry, he manages to get away from Voldemort and he completes the trials. And I think the ending of the film is pretty good, like where you have Ron, Hermione, and Harry at the end, and Ron and Harry sort of make up, like they put their differences aside, and we see they all kind of agree to not
everything's going to change, and I think that's what she says, and that's kind of the whole message of the film, like coming of age and realizing that the world is only going to get darker and scarier, and also like because someone dies, so like Cedric, he dies at the end.
Yeah.
Maybe didn't stay dead enough to not do Twilight, but oh well.
Yeah. Robert Pattinson. I mean, I'm glad he did die off his character in this film, because I'm not a huge fan of Robert Pattinson, but yeah.
How dare you?
Twilight breaking yawn. Yeah. That's all he calls it. No, but I mean, yeah. I mean, and overall, I think Goblet of Fire, it's a great Harry Potter film. I mean, my opinion of it has definitely changed a lot from when I first saw it. I remember when I saw it the first time in the cinema, I was kind of disappointed by it, and it was my least favorite Harry Potter film at the time. But now rewatching it, it's definitely gone up a lot, in my opinion. I mean, it's still not my favorite Harry Potter film. I still think I prefer the first two slightly more, but Goblet of Fire is still a great film. I can understand why it's Ollie's favorite in the
Would
series.
you take it over Prisoner of Azkaban?
Yeah, I will actually. I was gonna get to my rating in a minute, but yeah, I think I would put it above Prisoner of Azkaban. Yeah. So like on rewatch, I was quite surprised by how good this was. I mean, I never thought it was bad. I like all the Harry Potter films, but this is definitely not one of my favorite Harry Potter films. But rewatching it now, I think it's a great Harry Potter film, and it's like Ollie said, it's like a coming of age film. It's them learning to grow up and sort of learning to deal with their hormones, I guess you could say, and also, learning to deal with Voldemort and the Triwizard stuff is really it's great stuff. So I'm going to close off by giving Goblet of Fire a 9 out of 10.
Oh, excellent! Thank you, Jack, for that very interesting assessment. So we now pass over to Harry.
Oh, well, I can totally see why Goblets of Fire is your favourite in the franchise, Ollie, because of the first four, this is the first true masterpiece in the Harry Potter franchise.
Thank you. That is the correct answer.
I thought you said Azkaban was.
Well, yeah. Azkaban is still a classic, but I still have my minor nitpicks with it. But with Goblet of Fire, I have no nitpicks with whatsoever.
Thank you. That is the correct answer.
You're most welcome, man.
There is no correct answer.
Yeah. Goblet of Fire to me is a flawless Harry Potter movie. This is, I'm like, from this movie on, you get the sense that everything's going to change, and now that's Hermione's line at the end of the movie. I mean, if you thought Prisoner of Azkaban got the series more mature, then this is the first Harry Potter movie to be rated PG-13 in the US and a 12A in the UK. And I was
sorry, just a quote. You said The Prisoner of Azkaban was the first movie that got serious.
Oh yeah, serious. Oh yeah.
Why so serious?
Oh yeah, because it starred Sirius Black, of course, and but I was sadly underage to see this movie at the time. I was just 10, and it was rated 12. But thankfully, I did wait until I was 12 to get the DVD, and man, this movie shot me in a good way, and I absolutely the opening here this time is.
How did you see the film in the cinema?
No, sadly, I was underage.
I find that funny because you're older than me, and this is the first one I saw in the cinema, and you saw the first. Did you see the first three in the cinema?
I saw the first and third, but not the second and fourth, sadly. But my mum, she recommended I wait for the DVD to see it, and she was right, and also I think the darker tone here works better than it did in Prisoner of Azkaban. We're more adapted to it at this point, and the opening is also an improvement from Prisoner of Azkaban, where we see the Muggle caretaker at the graveyard at Little Hangleton. He goes into the Rizzle house and he sees baby Voldemort chatting with Wormtail and Doctor Who, or sorry, Barty Crouch Jr., about the plan to resurrect him. And then we see Nagini, and she lets him know that he's standing outside the door, and then he Avada Kedavras him. And yeah, this is the first Harry time we see in the franchise. We see the Death Eaters, the followers of Lord Voldemort, who literally burned down and terrorized the Quidditch World Cup, and we also see Barty Crouch Jr. cast the Dark Mark, and when Alistair Moody, he's teaching them the defense against the dark, the unforgivable curses. We see them for the first time, and yeah, it is a serious stuff, and also yeah, I agree with Jack. This is the first movie of the series where the relationships between our protagonists are tested. This is such a relatable movie for anybody who is in high school, because you do have fallout, so you do have romances. Like Ron is acting like a dick when Harry's name emerges from the goblet. He even tells Harry to piss off, right, and Ron also gets jealous when Victor Crumb is crushing on Hermione at the Yule Ball, and Harry is jealous when Cedric.
Oh my giddy aunt! Oh crumbs!
Oh yeah, exactly. And when Harry is crushing on, Harry gets jealous when Cedric is crushing on Cho Chang. I'm like, Harry, why are you crushing on Cho? You have Ginny. Just go to Ginny, man.
Yeah.
Well, I don't.
We gotta wait until part 6 for that.
Yeah, I don't think he knows that Ginny likes him that much until later on.
Well, yeah, because Ginny was shy about it until.
Oh, actually, you say that.
Ron...
No, hang on. You say that, but in the Chamber of Secrets, Ron says to Harry, "Oh, that's Ginny, my sister. She's been talking about you all summer." Oh, dead annoying, really. So I think Harry might have had an idea, but he may have just forgot. He may have just kind of.
Although one thing I will say, if he went for Ginny in this film, considering that Ron's kind of annoyed at Harry, he might have decked Harry. You never know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that would have made him mad at Harry even more. But yeah, maybe Harry didn't realize it until Half-Blood Prince. But still, yeah. And I also absolutely love that in this movie we get to see more Wizarding World schools besides Hogwarts. We get some world building. We get to see the French all-girls school for wizards Beauxbatons and the Bulgarian school Domestrang. Even though the Fantastic Beasts movies did this better, it's awesome that we get. Oh yeah, sorry. I think but yeah, I absolutely loved the additions of Beauxbatons and Domestrang and the Triwizard Tournament in general, even though it is a health and safety hazard. But Hogwarts doesn't give a shit about health and safety. The Wizarding World is harsher when it comes to education than the Muggle world. yeah, my favourite character of the 4 champions would be Fleur Delacour by far.
Well, obviously, I mean, for what reason? Oh, need we ask?
She
Yeah,
is
I wonder
fucking
why.
She is fucking gorgeous. So that is
I
why.
mean, even Alan said in his review. I mean, when she's in that swimsuit, woo!
Oh, she is a total babe in that swimsuit. I feel
Yes.
I am jealous as fuck that Harry and Ron got a kiss from Fleur in the second task after Harry rescued her sister, and then
Sorry, who's this in the swimsuit?
Fleur.
Fleur.
And,
oh yes.
oh yeah, and all and yeah, and all the 3 tasks. The first, the dragon task would be my favorite. I love that they improved that from the book. In the book, Harry just stays in the arena, but in the movie, it's far more epic. Whereas we see the dragon chase him around the castle, and
It's a bit weird though how because none of them everybody's watching him and then he just flies off and then they don't see what happens. So I guess for them it's not really that exciting.
oh yeah. In fact, they don't get to watch the entire tournament in general. They don't get to see what the dragon does with Harry. They don't get to see what's under the lake, and they don't even get to see what's going on in the maze. So they don't get to see.
And they certainly don't get to see Voldemort.
Oh, I know, right? They missed all the excitement, and then
Harry. Imagine if before the trial started, you had that guy from Raven. Let the challenge begin.
Oh yeah, yeah. That would be. Oh yeah, Raven classic show. That would be awesome. And then I think the movie is certainly better than the Goblet of Fire book. Even J.K. Rowling herself admitted the book was overlong, and yeah, thankfully, even though they were considering doing this movie as 2 movies, thankfully they just went with 1 movie. It would not have worked.
Mike Newell put his foot down and said, no, there is nowhere in the story you can break off. You don't have enough plot, basically.
Harry,
yeah.
If you thought the Goblet of Fire book was long, wait until you get to Order of the Phoenix. Fuck.
Oh yeah, that's the longest book in the entire series. I know, right? But yeah, it's 1 movie works far better.
I'm surprised they split Deathly Hallows into 2, not Order of the Phoenix, since that's the longest book. But yeah.
Again, though, Jack, it's not enough plot. There's not enough to 2 films. Most of Order of the Phoenix is filler in the book.
Well, yeah, exactly. But yeah, at least, it worked for Deathly Hallows because there was a cliffhanger there, but there's no cliffhanger or breaks in the story for Goblet of Fire or Order of the Phoenix, and then
or even the Half-Blood Prince,
or even Half-Blood Prince, exactly. And the second task is absolutely visually stunning. That's one of the most stunning scenes in every Harry Potter movie, and also. The maze, this maze is terrifying in how it's alive and it's out to get you, and the final moments of Goblet of Fire are by far the best part, where we see the horrifying return of Lord Voldemort himself, played by Ralph Fiennes. Finally, we get to see what Voldemort his physical appearance after all this.
I have to say, Harry, it's Ray Fiennes. I don't think he likes being called Ralph Fiennes, but yeah.
Oh yeah, Ray Fiennes. Yeah, sorry, and also, yeah, it's I can see why I didn't see this movie at the cinema at the time, because even in the moments when Cedric is murdered and they're collecting Harry's blood for the cauldron, I had to look away at those moments. They were just too disturbing for me, even at 12. And
it is very scary. Yeah,
I know, right? Damn, this movie does have balls, and the fight.
I'm not surprised that they rated it at 12. To be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I know, right? The 12 was the justified rating, and the final duel.
Funny enough, I was 8 when I saw the film in the cinema.
Oh, awesome! Well, awesome. yeah, and so maybe I could have, but oh well, and then the final duel with Harry and Voldemort is such a epic finale where we see they connect their wands, and we'll see this finale again for the final time in Deathly Hallows Part 2, and then Harry brings back Cedric's body, and then it's revealed in the plot twist that's Alistair Moody, and played by Brendan Gleeson, was Barty Crouch Jr. this entire time, who had taken Polyjuice Potion to get Harry to the graveyard. And then the ending is this is honestly this is the first dark and Harry Potter ending that doesn't end on a light note. So where things look so bleak for our heroes, like from now on it's war. You're like let's prepare for battle in the following movies to come.
As soon as Cedric dies, yeah, that is sort of the turning point, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. And Cedric's funeral and Dumbledore's speech, dark and difficult times lie ahead. Soon we must all face the choice between what's right and what was easy. And yeah, Goblet of Fire. This is the first. Yeah, this is the first the perfect Harry Potter movie in my opinion, and the even though it's not my absolute favorite, but I can see why it is Ollie's personal favorite. Awesome pick, but yeah, I would totally rate Goblet of Fire 10 out of 10 and full 5 stars out of 5.
Oh, cheers! Awesome.
So the other ones
Harry...
yeah, fuck yeah, joking.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on a minute, right, Harry. What was I going to say? Yeah, or what do you think of the music of the film? And also, like, would you have liked to have seen the Quidditch match?
I am relieved there's no Quidditch in this movie. It would have been unnecessary because we had the tournament. That was it. That was enough.
But, I mean, just because we have the whole build up of going to the Quidditch World Cup, and then they just kind of cut away from it just as soon as they're about to start. It is a bit of a cheat, though, isn't it?
Oh yeah, the Quidditch World Cup, of course. Yeah, I guess I can see why some would see them just cutting away from the World Cup is before the game begins is anticlimactic. But that didn't bother me because the important thing was the Death Eater part, and also the music by Patrick Doyle is that. The music by Patrick Doyle is absolutely epic. To me, it said I didn't even notice John Williams' absence because the score was that worthy.
Oh, fair enough. That's great. Okay, so Alan.
Yes. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. I love this movie. I love it. I love it. This is definitely one of my very favorite of the Harry Potter movies. I would probably rank this my third favorite behind Sorcerer's Stone and Deathly Hallows Part 2. So this is probably my third favorite of the bunch. This is an awesome Harry Potter movie. I loved it from the first time I saw it. I think it's a big improvement over Prisoner of Azkaban, even though I still like Prisoner of Azkaban, but I do think Goblet of Fire is definitely better. Mike Newell directed this. This would be the only one he would direct, but he did a terrific job with it. And I just think that this is for me, it's a better story. The stakes are higher in this one. The drama.
Would you call it an epic?
What's that?
Would you call it an epic?
It's epic. It feels epic. Yeah, definitely an epic Harry Potter story. The fact that they're a little bit older now. They're now starting to deal with, their emotions. I mean, as you say, in this one, they're starting to, deal with their hormones. They're starting to take notice of the opposite sex now. The growing pains that come with all of that. And the fact that in this one, Harry is thrusted into the Triwizard Tournament, even though he's too young to do it, but somebody put his name forward without his knowledge, and his name was actually chosen, and so now he has to do it and take part in the tournament. And a very, very dangerous tournament this is. But I just think this is a fantastic adventure. This is definitely a thrilling chapter in the Harry Potter saga. I also like the fact that in this story, Hogwarts is visited by a couple of visiting wizard schools from elsewhere in the world. You've got, let's see, let's see, I forget the names of the schools, but one of them is like
the Durmstrang School and the Beauxbatons.
The Beauxbatons. That's the one with the girls.
Yeah.
Yes, and in the Durmstrang are the Bulgarians, the Victor Crumb, yes, all of that lot.
Yeah, these Bulgarian boys and these French girls all come to Hogwarts to take place in the tournament, and I thought that was a wonderful twist to the story. Yes, all the French girls are very lovely, including Le Fleur Delacour. I looked at her. The actress's name is Clemence Posey. Clemence Posey.
Yes.
She's she's quite a sight for sore eyes. She's a very, very lovely young lady. Although,
do you remember that scene when they enter and then they go, ah? They do that little dance as they come in.
Oh yes, they come in. They all do the yes, indeed. Yeah, it's like both schools get to do a little bit of choreography when they come into the dining hall of Hogwarts, which is fun to see. This is also the movie for me where Michael Gambon truly became Dumbledore for me. We'll always miss Richard Harris, but Michael Gambon is now the new Dumbledore, and this is where he really comes into his own as Dumbledore. He's given a lot to do, and a very, very strong performance from him this time out. So from this movie onwards, he's Dumbledore for me, no problem. Yeah, he does a very good job here, and I like him. I mean, we'll never forget Richard Harris, but Michael Gambon, a very good Dumbledore in his own right, and I think this is the movie where he solidifies himself as Dumbledore. So I liked him very much in this movie.
Also, can I mention that? Sorry. There's a famous actress in this film, Frances Delator, plays the headmistress of the Beauxbaton School. And when she refers to him, she says, Professor Dumbledore.
Yes, she's the really, really tall woman who's Hagrid's date at the ball. She's so. I think she's even taller than Hagrid. Is that the joke? She's a little bit taller than Hagrid. No, she's quite good. She's quite amusing in the part. Yes. Again, all the regulars in the cast are good. Again, I mean, you've got Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, and Emma Watson as the main trio of Harry, Ron, and Hermione. Again, watching them grow up before your eyes is fun. They are all now teenagers. And let's see, again, their characters are starting to take notice of the opposite sex now. There's the big scene where they go to the ball at Hogwarts. That's a lot of fun. And the various scenes where they're trying to find dates is also fun to see. It adds a wonderful extra layer to the story, I think. All the kid actors here are great. Like I said, they're growing up. They're all teenagers now. But they're all quite wonderful, as well as all the adults in the cast. Michael Gambon, Maggie Smith, Alan Rickman, and all the rest. The new additions.
Sorry to interrupt, Alan. I just wanted to ask you, do you think this film is a coming-of-age story as well?
Oh, that's totally what it is. Definitely, again, because I mean, the kids are older now. They're teenagers. The hormones are starting to kick into gear, and we see how they deal with that. Definitely coming of age. In fact, I think the trailers for Harry Potter and Goblet of Fire kind of alluded to that, where they showed us scenes of the kids from the previous 3 movies, and then they show us scenes from Goblet of Fire just to show us, yes, they're growing up. They're growing up before our very eyes.
Oh yeah, I remember that, the teaser trailer.
Yeah, and they're definitely growing up. It's definitely a coming of age story. There's no question about that. You've got wonderful new additions to the cast. I also want to mention. I mean, I love Brendan Gleeson as Alistair Mad Eye Moody. He's a wonderfully funny character. He has I guess he has like a robotic eye, and he walks with a cane, and he's very very funny. He's quite a prankster as a teacher, and he's got great humor about him. So I think he's a great addition to the cast.
I love that scene when Professor McGonagall tells him off. She says, "We never use transfiguration as a punishment."
That's right. Yeah, no, he's very very funny. I mean, I really like him a lot in this movie. And yes, David Tennant, just before he became the 10th Doctor in Doctor Who, he's in here as the villain Barty Crouch Jr. Doesn't get too much to do, but when he's on screen, he's great, and he is suitably slimy, I guess, being a descendant of the Slytherin group. So he's quite good. When he's on screen, he is quite good. Very, very good. And yeah, he did this just before he was cast as the 10th Doctor. So good to see him here. I also want to make mention, I don't know if anybody mentioned her yet, Miranda Richardson, who plays the reporter Rita Skeeter. She's quite funny in her role when she comes in to interview some of the kids for her newspaper, and she's quite funny. So nice to see her. I've always liked Miranda Richardson. I mean, from the days when I saw her on Blackadder as the Queen, she's quite funny. I've always liked her. So she's quite good. Yes, indeed. I love the
Queenie. Yeah, and Blackadder too. That's hilarious. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, that was the first time I saw Miranda Richardson. Yeah, she's quite good in that. But yeah, I another thing I love about Goblet, I love the Triwizard Tournament itself, where Harry and like three other kids from that are selected to be the house champions have to take part in the tournament, and the tournament scenes are wonderful. I mean, I think there's 3 different challenges in the tournament, where first they have to fight dragons. The second one, they go underwater and have to rescue their friends who are being held underwater by magic, so they don't drown, obviously, but they have to, there's temptations and danger underneath the water that they have to overcome to rescue their friends. And then finally, they have to go into that big ominous maze that comes to life. And sometimes the maze walls will come together to try to like strangle you, or it'll play tricks on your mind to make you go mad, in various dangers in order to get the Triwizard Cup hidden somewhere in the maze. All 3 of the tournament scenes are really, really entertaining. Very, very exciting stuff. I never get tired of watching the Triwizard Tournament scenes in this movie. They're great fun. Great acting from everybody. Mike Newell's direction. This is wonderful. The movie is a little over 2.5 hours long, but that's fine. I don't feel the length of this film at all. It just flies by because I just think the story is so good. I love the extra layer to this story of watching the kids who are now teenagers and their relationships with each other, trying to get dates for the ball, seeing
another thing you
aspect of
forgot,
the story.
Moaning Myrtle.
Sorry?
Moaning Myrtle reappears in this film.
Yes, Moaning Myrtle comes back. That's right, she comes back. Let's see. I also like the bit with Gary Oldman returning as Sirius Black, but we see him as a I guess a flame special effect in the fireplace, talking to Harry, which is a really cool effect. It still holds up really well to this day. I really believe we were seeing Gary Oldman's face in the fireplace. It's like his face is made of fire.
And they totally changed it in Order of the Phoenix. They changed the effect, which doesn't work.
Oh, I mean, because Gary Oldman appears in the flesh in Order of the Phoenix. But I only remember...
Oh, yeah, no, but there's a scene when he is in the fire in Order of the Phoenix, but we're not looking at him face down. We're looking at him, like, face on, and you kind of just see almost a projection of his face, and it's not like the kind of crumply coal look to his face. We just see his face.
Yes, you're right.
I don't think it looks as good as this.
You're right. I'd forgotten about that. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. But I mean, the effect here in Goblet of Fire is really good. It's like his face is part of the fire, the flaming coals, and it looks really good. It still holds up really well. I think I like that very much. Um, let's see who else. And of course, I have to say this is the film where we finally get to see the return of Lord Voldemort in the form of the one and only Ray Fiennes, one of my all-time favorite actors, and of course, he's now playing James Bond's boss M in the Bond films. But this is probably
Voldemort's the new M. What's the world come to?
right. But this is probably the role that Ray Fiennes is best known for as Lord Voldemort, and he is scary. He is really really scary. I love the effect that they do. I guess the CGI effect on his face to basically remove his nose, so he has a couple of nostrils but no nose, and which looks pretty creepy. And it's like his teeth have like miniature fangs and the teeth looks pale, but he is scary. I mean, quite a screen presence. I mean,
it must be really painful for him to sneeze. My God.
Probably, yeah. You'd think, but yeah. I mean, whoever they were going to get to play Lord Voldemort, I mean, they had to get somebody really, really high caliber, and I'm so happy they went with Ray Fiennes because he's great. He is as evil can be. He's quite a formidable foe, quite a formidable physical presence against Harry, and I mean, I think he was perfectly cast. I can't think of anybody else who could do Voldemort, but Ray Fiennes. He is quite good in the part. Also, got to make mention.
Funny, there's that creepy moment where he touches Harry and he touches the skull. He's like, "I can touch it now," and it's like, and he goes, "Ah." It's a really strange.
Oh yeah. Oh no, that's a great moment. That's definitely a great moment for him. And of course, we have to mention, and whether you really like the guy or not. I mean, Robert Pattinson playing Cedric Diggory. This was just before he became a Twilight pretty boy.
This was the one good role from Robert Pattinson. All his other roles are shite.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is just before he became forever associated with Twilight. He appears here as Cedric Diggory, and he is very good. I mean, this would be his only movie.
Alan, have you seen the Twilight films?
You couldn't pay me to watch the Twilight movies. No, I will have nothing to do with the Twilight movies. I'm sorry. I mean, if you're in love with Robert Pattinson, fine. But like I said, I mean, none of those movies got good reviews, and it's just totally for teenage girls who love Robert Pattinson. That's pretty much it,
or Taylor.
I don't care that they were box office hits. You couldn't pay me to watch them. I'm sorry. I don't want to watch the Twilight movie. I'm sorry. But
Breaking Your Part 1.
Yeah, I can't watch it. I just can't watch them. I'm sorry. I'm just not the slightest bit interested in watching them. I'm sorry. But anyway, but he is good here. I'll give him that. He is good. Robert Pattinson is good as Cedric Diggory. This would be his only movie because, alas, he gets killed by Voldemort at the end. And of course, this changes everything for Harry and friends because this is the first major death of a character in the series. Even though this is Cedric's only movie, I don't think we've ever seen Cedric in any of the other movies. Just this one. But still,
first death since Harry's parents. But yeah, because while the characters are there, yeah, basically.
But I mean, he's one of the fellow tournament champions who takes part in the tournament with Harry, and they seem to strike up a friendship of sorts, even though they probably don't know each other that well. But I mean,
I think Cedric is older than him. He's 17 or something.
Yeah. But I mean, they're friendly enough with each other, and they make a good pair for the short time that Pattinson is on screen as Cedric. But unfortunately, they then have the confrontation with Voldemort at the end, and sadly, Cedric is no match for Voldemort, and Voldemort kills him. But this is an important death because it changes everything for Harry and everybody at Hogwarts. The death of Cedric.
But Alan, it's worthy to note that his father, like Cedric's dad, he makes a very heartfelt, emotional cry when he sees his son dead on the floor.
Oh, no, yeah, no, it's a powerful moment. Yeah, but they killed my son. My son is dead, or whatever it was. He cries. Yes, yes. No, it's a very powerful moment. I mean, very powerful. I mean, okay, Harry.
Why this school isn't closed down now? It doesn't make any sense after a kid died.
I mean, it's like, okay, Harry wins the tournament, but at the cost of Cedric being killed in the process. So
Yeah,
you know, big whoop. When somebody's been
Surprised Hogwarts stayed open after one of their pupils got killed.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's a very, very powerful moment, to be sure. As I say, I love all the Triwizard Tournament stuff. I love all the stuff at the ball and them trying to come to terms, you know, with their emotions and
Hermione, Emma Watson looks beautiful in that dress.
Yes, she is. I mean, look, let's not kid ourselves. I mean, Emma Watson has blossomed into a most beautiful woman. I mean, she's gorgeous. She's absolutely gorgeous, and seeing her when she
definitely grew.
What?
Yeah, well, I was going to say. I mean, when you see her in her ball gown for the first time, you think, wow, she's just so beautiful. That she's really blossomed as she's grown up. In just seeing her in these first 4 movies, how she's grown up and just blossomed, you know. And of course, she's even more gorgeous now that she's 100% woman. Lovely woman she is. Emma Watson, but yeah, she's beautiful here, and she also gets a great dramatic moment because I think she and Ron were supposed to go to the ball, but something goes wrong between them, and so
yeah, I think Ron is jealous the fact that she went with Crumb.
Oh, okay, yes, that's right. That Ron's jealous that she went with Crumb. And Hermione gets very upset, and that's a great dramatic moment for her. And then of course Harry comes along later and comforts her. I guess I puts his arm around her. I guess on the stairs, and you know that's a great dramatic moment for her. So there's definitely you know some good acting from the main 3 here, and seeing their relationship with each other develop, and it's just overall it's just a great, terrific chapter in the saga. I think of Harry Potter, and it is a coming of age story. It's definitely a landmark, I guess, Harry Potter story because nothing will ever be the same for Harry and company after this. Because the fact is now we all know Voldemort is back. Harry and company knows Voldemort is back, and they're going to have to watch their backs from this point on. And things are only get darker and darker from this point on. So, you know, it's definitely one of the most powerful chapters, I think, in the Harry Potter saga, and I think they made a fantastic movie version of it. I have nothing to complain about Goblet of Fire. I think everything about it works, and it's a little over 2.5 hours, but it moves just fine. I don't feel the length of this movie at all. It's wonderfully done straight across the board. The acting, directing, visual effects, the action scenes, the fact that the characters get extra emotional layers added to them, and the story, everything works. So I love it. I love Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. This is definitely one of my favorite Harry Potter films. And this movie gets an easy 10 out of 10.
Awesome. Thank you, Alan. That's the correct answer.
There is no correct answer.
I mean, just one more thing before I say my piece. Alan, like the idea of the tournament, do you think that it kind of doesn't make sense in the context of like they're a school? Why would they host such a dangerous tournament if people die? Do you think that's a little bit?
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the things you have to throw in the towel about if you're going to be a fan of Harry Potter and the whole thing about Hogwarts. I mean, you guys already said it. Hogwarts doesn't give a shit about certain rules of safety regarding the children. I mean, they do, but minimally, because I mean, these kids could be killed by any of the. They could be killed in class if a spell goes wrong. They could be killed. You know, I mean that's how dangerous it is. But you just got to throw in the towel and say, look, this is a work of fiction. It's all made up. It's all from the imagination of J.K. Rowling, and you just got to go along with it. That okay, these are the dangers that these particular very gifted children have to face on a regular basis. That something could go wrong with their spells, and they could be killed. There could be some kind of danger out there, and they could be killed. But that's just how it is. That's just the danger of it. But I guess the teachers at Hogwarts try to school these children the best they can in their magic, so they're able to defend themselves and protect themselves. But yeah, it is pretty surprising how highly dangerous going to Hogwarts can be. But
can you imagine a Hogwarts open day? Be like, in our school, we have dragons, we have underground lakes, we have mazes that eat you alive.
I know. But like I said, you just got to throw in the towel and go with it. Okay, fine. That's how this fictional world of Hogwarts is. That's how J.K. Rowling designed it. You just got to go, okay, that's what it is. And either you're a fan of it or you're not. I'm a fan of it. I admit I have not yet read the books, which I feel bad about because I know I should read the books. But I just haven't had the time, so I've only seen the films. But
I highly recommend the books, Alan. They're very good.
Yeah, I know I should.
Even the longer ones.
Yeah, it's just a matter of getting the time to actually sit down and read them. But I am a big fan of the films, and I do love the whole world that Rowling has created and the filmmakers have created, despite the obvious danger to the kids who go to Hogwarts. But even so, as a work of fiction, I'm still a big fan of it, and I hope to read the books at some point.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy the films very much. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no, I just wanted to get your view on that because, yeah, I'm in the same opinion as you. All right, I will try and keep this fast because we are at midnight now, and I got to go soon. So, by the way, at the end, guys, we'll do a ratings list, but we won't do a ranking yet because we still got 4 more movies to go. So we'll do a collective rating out of 80 so far because we still got 4 movies to go. So anyway, The Goblet of Fire, as all of you have previously alluded, this is my all-time favorite Harry Potter film. Always has been, and it always will be. Well, since it came out anyway. The Goblet of Fire, for me, it has everything. It's amazing. It's epic. It's an epic. It really is. I mean, even though you have to kind of suspend your disbelief that in the real world, health and safety would go fucking bananas with the fact that Hogwarts are hosting such a dangerous tournament for kids. Kids who are even 17-year-olds would be life-threatening. But I'm prepared to put that to one side and just enjoy the movie on its own merits because I actually think the film is actually better than the book. And I agree. Sorry, controversial, but the book.
Yeah, I think some of the fans of the books might get pissed off saying that, but
yeah, screw them. I don't care. It's my opinion. Look, I will say this: I do like the book, but the book is way too long, and there's a lot of filler in the book. I think the films, for me, I enjoy more just because they tell the essential story, and I'm more of a visual person anyway. I prefer to see things rather than read them. But I'm not going to shit the books. I love the books, but I just prefer the films. But anyway, Goblet of Fire. The opening of this film is really interesting. It's like dark and intriguing, and the music that comes in is really good. The dun, 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 and the way it starts with the old man going to the house and seeing Voldemort and Wormtail is really creepy. And I like the fact that we don't have the Dursleys in this film. It's just a nice change, I think they're in the book, but it's such a long, drawn-out opening that they don't really need to have that in the movie. They just cut straight to the point.
Yeah, you're like, Harry, just stay with the Weasleys at this point.
Yeah. But I love the fact that this film, it's a turning point in the series for me. It's another reason why it's my favorite, because the characters are growing up. They're coming of age, and I like the fact that this film addresses that. It deals with them interested in the opposite sex, and the whole idea of the Yule Ball is interesting in that regard. and it works. The film is dark, but it does have a bit more humor than The Prisoner of Azkaban, which is why I prefer it, because Azkaban is a little gloomy at points in the lighting and also in some of the script. It's just not as funny as some of the others, but this one is quite funny. There's a lot of funny humor in this. The funniest scene for me was when McGonagall teaches them how to dance, and she gets Ron up to dance with her, and she's like, "Lorelei, I am prepared to prance. Mr. Weasley, will you join me? Take your hand on my waist." And he's like, "Where? My waist." And she's like, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Which is really quite amusing. And also, when Neville's learning to dance, the fact that he's the only one taking it seriously and all the other guys just don't want to do it. It's just such a funny thing. I mean, all the teenage romance stuff is funny. And the fact that Harry's the fact that he can slay a dragon, but he can't get a girlfriend, that's just kind of says it all, doesn't it? There's that scene when he's at the Owlery with Cho, and he's like, "Oh, I just, do you want to go to the ball with me?" He just kind of blurts it out. And it's like, "I'm sorry, I didn't catch that." Which I parodied in my review for the sketch. And then it turns out she's going with Cedric, and then, Ron kind of likes Hermione, but Hermione's falling for Victor Crumb, but Ron also kind of fancies Fleur. So there's a lot of... They're kind of discovering quite a lot about the sexual attraction, which is interesting. But I think that's a great part of the movie. But this is also a very action-packed Harry Potter film. I love the fact that we've got the 3 tasks. The dragon task is really epic, and I agree with Harry, the way that it starts in the arena and then goes out into Hogwarts, I think is cool, because if we'd have stayed in the arena the whole time, it may have been boring,
I know,
and
right?
we go around the school. Harry nearly falls off the blooming castle. I mean, that's intense. And then the lake task is probably my favorite because of the visuals. The CGI in that sequence is fantastic. Once again, production design is superb, absolutely brilliant. But the lake sequence is probably one of my favorite scenes in the film. It's just so eerie and creepy. And the fact that it's kind of all like grudgy and foggy under there, like you can't really see anything. And then when you get to the mermaid place and you see Harry rescues the two, like Ron and Fleur's sister. I mean, it's a great scene, very intense, and a lot of good visuals there. Mike Newell directs the film very well, and I really wish that Mike Newell stayed to direct more, because I think he got it right. I mean, there's a balance in tone in this film. The film has a balance of light and dark, and it works. I mean, towards the end, the tone does get darker. I mean, especially with the maze task. The maze is really cool. The way it eats you alive and then, tries to suck you in, which is cool. And obviously the whole thing leads to the graveyard scene with Voldemort. Ralph Fiennes is phenomenal as Voldemort. He's fantastic. He was born to play this role. And I like the fact that he's got the slits in his nose. He's kind of like bald, and he looks really freaky. I mean, his eyes, when you see him the first time, it's like, wow, it's so real. And when he has his, I guess his duel with Harry, that's a great moment when their wands connect and they see the ghosts. Not sure why the ghost of the old man is there, but oh well. And it's the first time we get a death since Harry's parents. It's quite a dramatic ending when Cedric sadly dies. Robert Pattinson gets killed. Woohoo for the Twilight haters. It's a great sequence when they get back to the stadium, and then Harry's crying over Cedric, and he's like, Voldemort's back, Cedric wanted me to bring his body back. Such an emotional scene. And then Amos Diggory, Cedric's dad, comes down and starts, he gets emotional. He's like, "Oh, that's my son, my boy," and it's all really, really powerful stuff. And I think Patrick Doyle's music score is fantastic. It may not be to the level of John Williams, but I love it. I think the music is great for this film. It's epic. It's bittersweet. I mean, there's some great, the music with the scene with Harry and Cho is lovely when they're at the Owlery. That's a lovely piece of music. I also love Mad Eye Moody. He's great. Brendan Gleeson is funny. And that scene is dark when he's teaching them the unforgivable curses. Surely that wasn't on the curriculum. But I mean, maybe he's allowed to teach them, but maybe he's not allowed to perform them. I mean, he literally killed the spider right in front of them, which is pretty freaky. I mean, yes, the movie's long. It's 2 hours 37 minutes. It is quite long, but for me, the pacing never dragged. I can understand that some people, find it to be slow towards the middle. It does kind of slow down after the first task. I can understand, but I enjoy it. I don't have a problem with it. I think it moves quicker than Chamber of Secrets, but that's just me. What else was I going to say? Michael Gambon, he is Dumbledore. He has finally become Dumbledore. Apart from that one line when he says, "Did you put your name in the goblet of fire?" But he could have said that a bit calmer. But other than that, I think he's great, and I think you definitely see a much more raw Dumbledore, much more closer to what we would have liked in The Prisoner of Azkaban. But he gets more to do in this film, which I think is helpful. And I agree. Like, it's nice to see the other schools of the Wizarding world come into play and compete in the tournament. And it's actually kind of nice when they leave. There's they're all cheering and clapping for them as they decide to go back to their own schools. Obviously, the Durmstrang people, the Bulgarians with Crumb, they're cool. And then the Beauxbatons with Fleur, they're all good. And obviously, Hagrid has his own little romance in this film, which is quite funny. With Madame Maxime, she's a very big, large French headmistress of the school. It's also worthy to note that none of you guys have mentioned him. I don't think you have anyway. Roger Lloyd Pack, who's a very famous actor, plays Barty Crouch in this film, who is the father of David Tennant's character.
Oh, whoops! Sorry about that. Forgot.
No, good. He sort of officiates the Triwizard tournament, and he sadly gets killed. I think pretty killed by his own son, by the sounds of it. But I like his little part in this film, and as well, David Tennant as Barty Crouch Jr. He's only in a couple of scenes. He's only in a few scenes, but he's good in what he does. And this was shortly before we would see him become the Doctor, or the 10th Doctor. So, yeah, it was great to see him in this, and I think he does a great job. He does this weird thing with his tongue, where he's kind of like as if he's like licking something. It's really creepy, but he's good in this film. He's good. My only complaint about this movie is the Quidditch World Cup scene. I would have liked to have seen at least a bit of the match. I mean, you have all that build up, and then it's just like, let the match begin. Okay, we'll cut to the tent. What? We don't even get to see it? Oh, for shame. Look, yeah. I mean, I know this and I know it was quite a long film, and they probably just wanted to get on with the story, but come on, even just a minute or so, or at least a montage of the match would have been nice, but it's just a nitpick, really. It doesn't bother me. I love this film. I just cannot express how much I love it. I mean, the Yule Ball scene as well is fantastic. I mean, maybe it's a little strange them having the rock and roll band, but to be honest, they're teenagers. Why not? Why not do that? And it is quite funny seeing Warwick Davis as the Professor Flitwick. He's like, the crowd are there, and they're like, he's lying on top of them, and like they're like shuffling him around, which is quite funny. And I agree with all you guys. It's great seeing the tensions between the three of them, between Harry, Ron, and Hermione. Like they all fall out with each other. Like Harry falls out with Ron, Ron falls out with Hermione. Harry and Hermione are kind of caught in the middle of Ron's arguments, and Harry and Hermione actually kind of fall out. So all three of them kind of get tested in this film. Like they've had a solid friendship in the first three, but this time it's like, raging hormones and adolescence coming into play. But that's why I like this film, because it's so transitional, not just for that, but also for the story. I mean, heck, the end of the film leaves you on a very interesting note, and I like that scene when Hermione says, everything's going to change now, isn't it? And also Ron says, can't we ever just have a quiet year at Hogwarts? They're like, no. So, from this point onwards, it's only going to get darker, only going to get more intense. But yeah, I think this film is an epic fantasy adventure. It's a great coming of age story. For me, it's always been my favorite of the series. I've watched it the most, and I can't get enough of it. I absolutely give this film a 10 out of 10. And the humor is great. I also love that scene when Malfoy gets turned into a ferret and gets stuffed down Crabbe's trousers, and then Goyle has to grab him out of his trousers. Oh, which is amusing. Followed by the McGonagall telling off Moody when she's like, "We never use transfiguration as a punishment. Surely Dumbledore told you that." And he was like, "Might have mentioned it. You will do well to remember it." That was quite funny. But yeah. And also the Sirius Black scene was good. When he's in the fireplace, that effect was really cool. I wish they'd done the same effect in Order of the Phoenix, but hey ho, you can't win them all. Damn it. So yeah, and Mike Newell did a fantastic job. I mean, he really did a great job with this film. So that pretty much concludes this Hangouts on the first 4 Harry Potter movies, years 1 to 4. So I'm going to pass over to Jack. So Jack, could you give us your ratings of all 4 movies and give us your rating out of 80 so far?
Well, I don't know if we can do that yet because, I suppose
I said so far. So.
Well, yeah. Okay. So, out of the Harry Potter films,
so far,
so far, I think they're all really great movies. Like Alan said, like you said, there's not really a bad film in the Harry Potter series. They all rate from good to excellent. The first Harry Potter film, Harry Potter from the Philosopher's Stone or Sorcerer's Stone, I think is a great film. Introduced us to the Wizarding Worlds and the Harry Potter franchise. It's a great film, very charming, and I give that one a 10. Chamber of Secrets, which is my favourite of the whole series. It's a lot darker, more complex. Love the whole Tom Riddle stuff. The final fight with the Basilisk, just a great film. Give that one a 10. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. It's a good film, although the story isn't as interesting as the others, but it's still a good, interesting story. Maybe some of the color tones could have been lightened up, but it's still a good film. So I'll give that an 8 out of 10. And Goblet of Fire, it's gone up a lot in my opinion. Really great film, sort of a coming to age film. Love the Triwizard Tournament. Maybe my only criticism was it'd be nicer if Harry got to fight Voldemort more in the film, but it doesn't damage the movie. So I give that one a 9 out of 10. So far out of 80, well, 10 out of 10, it's 20, 28 at, it's, I think that's 37 out of 80 so far.
Cool.
So yeah, and as for how I'd rank them so far, it would be number 4, Prisoner of Azkaban, number 3, Goblet of Fire, number 2, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, and number 1, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. And yeah, it's a great franchise. And I'll look forward, maybe not next week because I have to rewatch the other Harry Potter films to give my opinion. I have to watch the other films, but maybe the week after or whatever. But yeah, looking forward to the hangout whenever. Like I said, I have to watch the other Harry Potter films before we do that. So,
yeah.
But I enjoyed this hangout. But yeah.
Oh, thanks, Jack. I mean, well, wasn't originally going to rank the movies, but fair enough. I mean, I suppose we can rank them so far, and then collate all of them in the next hangout. So Harry.
Oh yeah. I would rate the first 4 Harry Potter movies a 38 out of 80. So far, yeah, none of the first 4 are my favorite in the franchise, but they are still magical, and they are family. They are classics, and yeah, for Philosopher's Stone especially is such a childhood classic of mine. Chamber of Secrets, even better, and Prisoner of Azkaban. That was the darker direction that the franchise needed, and Goblet of Fire was that first just flawless one in the series, and I never thought the series would have a better director than Mike Newell until David Yates came along. So yeah.
Cool. So just okay. Alan.
Yeah, all right. Well, as you know, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or Philosopher's Stone, that's my favorite in the series, so I give that one a perfect 10 out of 10. That's so that's my favorite one. Chamber of Secrets, I gave a 9 out of 10. Prisoner of Azkaban, an 8 out of 10. And then Goblet of Fire, another perfect score in 10 out of 10. So that's a score of 37 out of 40 so far. And ranking the four of them so far, even though the ranking will certainly change, although Sorcerer's Stone remains number one for me regardless. But so far, Prisoner of Azkaban would be number 4. Chamber of Secrets, number 3. Goblet of Fire, number 2. And, of course, Sorcerer's Stone, or Philosopher's Stone for you guys, at number 1.
Cool. Well, okay, so far, as we went, only got halfway through the series, my ratings for Philosopher's Stone, or Sorcerer's Stone, be 9 out of 10. Chamber of Secrets would be 9 out of 10. Prisoner of Azkaban, 9 out of 10. And Goblet of Fire, 10 out of 10. So that is 37, I believe. 37 out of 80 so far. Obviously, the journey continues. And obviously, before I say that, ranking so far would probably be number 4 be the Prisoner of Azkaban, but I still like it. 3 would be the Philosopher's Stone. 2 would be Chamber of Secrets, and 1 would be Goblet of Fire. So that is it for now, folks. We will return with years 5 to 7, where we talk about the last 4 movies in the franchise. So the Order of the Phoenix, the Half-Blood Prince, the Deathly Hallows Part 1, and Deathly Hallows Part 2. Then soon after, we'll do the Fantastic Beasts movies so far, because obviously they're still being made. And then, of course, only one director remains now, David Yates, and he will see the series out, and he will also continue with Fantastic Beasts. But it has been fun to talk about the first 4 movies. Thank you, 3 of you, for joining me. It's been great. And
thanks, Wally.
Yeah. Oh no, thank you. I look forward to doing the years 5 to 7 reflection. So everybody, stay tuned for that. And until then, thank you, everybody. This is Alan, Harry, Jack, and Ollie. Mischief managed.